Hey, this is Levi Lusko, and just a quick note before we dive in. In this episode, we have a conversation with actor Paul Hauser and his wife, Amy, who's a producer in the movie business. They talk about different things that could be difficult for those who have a past with drug addiction, or if you have kids listening in our family, we always say, be careful, little ears, what you hear. So just wanted to make sure and throw that out so you can either skip it, or if it's too difficult for you to talk about these things, the addiction or substance abuse that Paul has in his past, or to come back to it at an appropriate time for you to dive into this conversation. But that being said, there's so much healing and redemption in it, and I'm really excited for you to listen to this conversation. Hauser, we're so glad to have you on the podcast.
We're excited
it's
to be
really
here.
great.
We're glad to be on your podcast.
Thanks for joining us today,
so
guys.
Fun. So fun to get to know you guys. It was started a long time ago. I randomly had a comment from you on something on Instagram.
Yeah, we had read your devotional book, the black one. I forget the title.
Marriage Devotional.
Marriage Devotional. I could have guessed that. We read it, and we read it at a time in our marriage where we were like having a big like transition of like new things and trying to like heal up. Like the cuts had scarred over and now we're trying to heal the scars, you know, like that part of like a marriage rebuilding. And the book was so influential because we felt like we were like hanging out with another couple. And then she was showing me Passion Conference last year, and I saw your the sermon where you're in the trash bags and stuff, and I was like, do I not follow this guy on Instagram? Like I always get excited and follow whoever I'm inspired by, and I'm like, I want to be friends with them. So like followed you, and I think we DM'd each other.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey.
Well, one day you commented on something. I think it was cold plunging, like a cold plunging video.
Might have been, yeah.
You did a comment on it, and I was like, oh my God. Like I was so excited because I've watched your work forever. I remember,
thanks, man.
I mean, vividly as a child, remembering the Nancy Kerrigan, Tonya Harding thing. Like as a kid, that was like so spooky. Like, you know what I mean? It was like a Challenger explosion or something. It's like, dude, this is like the Olympics is getting tampered with. Right? A little bit.
Really
I mean, I so vividly recall watching Nancy Kerrigan skate. And then obviously we saw Tonya and Richard. I thought you were brilliant in Richard Jewell. And for my kids, your portrayal of Horace, you know, and Cruella throwing the garbage out. So that woman throwing the garbage outside of her moving vehicle while she's driving down the road. It's like, dude, flagrant. This girl is. It was like once she started littering, cold, stone cold.
Yeah. No, I love that movie. Actually,
It's a great movie.
I remember when I was shooting that. It was about a couple months after we had gone on our first date. We ended up we were on the Hinge app.
Yeah.
We had it set to LA, but we were both in Georgia. I was filming and you were like doing a book launch.
Yeah.
And we ended up going on our first date. And then months later, I was in London shooting Cruella, and she was like, I just had a dream about you. I just want you to know I saw you in this room, and it was like you had a darkness over you, but then like, what was it?
And then there was like, you walked out into the light. And like,
it was like I was shrouded in darkness and walked into the light or something. She's like, I just wanted to check in on you. I know we're not that close. We've hung out once, whatever. But it was like one of those things that could have scared me off and been like, this chick's having God dreams about me. I'm gonna go kick it at the honor bar with Emma Stone. But it was more like my reaction was like, oh, this girl's like living her faith. She's like, she's a real one.
That's a different deal.
Yeah. In a good way.
Yeah.
I wanted you to have community because like he jokes that my second date, I was like, you want to go to Passion with me? I was like, no, if you're in town, like you need to have community. You need to have people. And like that was just my heart for it.
I was like, I can't make out with her at Passion.
Yeah.
That was my heart for it.
Yeah.
At that time.
So all to say, when I saw your comment, I was like, wow, this is amazing because I didn't have any idea you had followed me. And then we started DMing, and it was like immediately I was like, man, we would love to have you guys on the podcast. And then you were like, I'll come out to Montana. We'll just come hang out. I was like, that would be phenomenal. And so now here we are. I think that was a year and a half ago or whatever.
A while ago. And I think too, it was like us feeling like, well, we're in one of those seasons too of like, well, things have kind of calmed down, and then like they went not calm all of a sudden. Which
tends to not do that. Yeah, when you say, "Oh, next season it's going to slow down," like, it's actually going to be worse.
At this point, I'm trying to game the system at this point where I'm like, man, it just feels like God doesn't have anything for me right now.
Yeah, right.
I'm just gonna like look around the room and be like, check your email.
Where you think you can do reverse psychology with God.
Oh my gosh,
Right?
that's
It doesn't
amazing.
work.
It's like I'm
so
kidding,
funny.
but not kidding. Like there is something there.
Yeah. But getting to know like your journey, you guys' story, like the more I see, the more I look into it, the more I'm in awe. Like honestly, of you guys as people, of the story God's writing in your family. So, I mean, just overwhelmed. But first, I want to start with, what is this chip on the back of your phone? Because it feels to me Mark of the Beast adjacent.
Yeah, no, I mean, hopefully it's anti that, right, babe?
Yeah.
This is a body well chip. And as my wife explains it when I say, hey, why is all this money missing from the account? She, half kidding.
Action figures.
You husbands
spend money on
know.
action
I don't know
figures.
what she's talking about. I care about my kids.
He has
I buy them
wrestling.
toys. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's what she's
Action
referring
figures.
to.
Yeah.
But this body well chip, she said, is like an anti-radiation thing where so many
EMF.
people are getting tumors like right behind their ears, and they've connected that
geez.
with either assumptively or scientifically connected that with the cell phone use, and then women like putting their phones in their bra or their shirt not thinking, and then breast cancer.
They think
Wow.
like women our age that are having babies and nursing, you always have your cell phone out in the middle of the night. Well, that radiation is going into the baby's soft tissue, brain, skull.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was just like, everybody's getting body well chips, and it protects it. And I've
And
got
that's
the little,
like, so
this
mitigates
protects
the
it.
radiation?
Yes.
So I got a little electromagnetic. I'm so into this. I got one of the little readers, and so like I was going up to people's phones in our house, and I was like, nope. You need
Oh
one.
my
And so,
gosh,
like,
that's incredible.
So whenever
I'm
you
gonna
put
write
it
that
up
down.
next to this, it goes all the way down to 0.
Does it change people's ability to like steal your data?
No, I don't think so.
No, that'd be tight.
You know what I mean? Like, do you
Yeah.
hear about that?
That's
Like
what we need.
Like a
RFID
wall
being able
against-
to,
I'm sure
Yeah.
Obama's kids have that or
Yeah.
something. We don't.
oh, they want you to choke up on your mic a little more. Sorry.
sorry.
It's
I
real
have to also
directional.
give her credit, by the way. I made that joke
You
about
can lower
money.
the angle too.
Okay.
I made that joke about money, but like the stuff she does spend our money on is always like something to help with health and wellness or to educate us. Or it's not like she's having caviar with a friend across town.
Yeah.
Like it's this kind of stuff, which I've, gotten into as well. Now that I know
He loves a red light.
some of the dangers of,
You like the red light sauna? Like the red light therapy?
I love the red light therapy. My buddy Dallas Page, who lives in Georgia, has a thing where he has multiple lights, and each light is like a different thing to
Oh,
heal
that's
you.
love
so
it.
interesting to me. I don't know
Yeah.
a lot about that.
Do it. We got into our health and wellness journey because I went and got my blood work done. We found out my son had autism, and so we were removing all the toxins out of our house and going through all that.
Trying to go gluten free, like all the
Yeah.
stuff they tell you right out the gate. Like, go do that.
Yeah.
I went and got my blood work done, and they're like, your inflammation, your body's at a 10. I was like, okay, I want to last a long time. So I'm going to go do everything we can. We're all into the biohacking. I went back 3 months later. I've been doing all the biohacking, the red light, the sauna, the cold plunge, and it was down to a 0. And the doctor was like, what have
The
you been
doctor
doing?
was like flabbergasted.
She's like, what are
She's
you
Wow.
doing? What are you eating? And I'm
Wow.
like, I
You're
told her
like, I
everything.
did it all. I did it all.
I was like, I went ham on this.
Yeah.
Like, we were all in.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Gosh.
It's so
What
what
fun.
does the
fun.
red light do?
So it depends on the light that you have. It can go 7 layers deep into your skin, and it calms down the inflammation almost down to your bone. And so we have all these cells that need regeneration and all that. And then we also have a biocharger, which is a Tesla coil, and it does 4 different therapies at once. And it charges your cells kind of like if you were to charge your battery. And so you sit around it like a campfire. I'll just show you guys a bit.
Okay.
These scientists and doctors,
Yeah.
they make these things. I guess they call them recipes, but
Yeah.
they've somehow concocted different energy combinations for different ailments. So they have one for, sore back, one for
Autism.
inflammation, autism, Lyme's disease, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing is, and honestly, that's the kind of thing that I would have been like, this looks like a huge waste of money.
Yeah, right.
And one of those things where like we had a husband-wife convo about it, and I was like, and then I tried it and I was like, no, I genuinely feel different and can
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
immediately that There's something to
and
this.
even if it is placebo, like, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some amount of that along the way when you're trying new things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, but there's still a power even in placebo too. I mean, yeah.
Well, our son was nonverbal, and we went over to our friends Jason and
When
Lauren
we say
Kennedy's.
nonverbal, like, let's put a fine point on that too. It was the kind of thing where like we're begging him to say like cookie and stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's 3. He's your oldest. He's 3.
Yep, I'm his
And
4.
so how old was he when you kind of started?
I had
this?
studied autism and worked with children with autism. And so like I started noticing things. And then as a mom, I stepped back and I was like, okay, there's a problem. There's something wrong. So around 2, we started, he was doing speech therapy and everything else. Then we got him tested in LA, and we got the results back while we were in Atlanta. And he was doing Naked Gun, I think. And and we were like, you know what, we need to move back to Atlanta and be around community. But so he was nonverbal. We went over to our friends Jason and Lauren Kennedy's house, and they were telling their mom, Jeff and Cheryl Scruggs, they were telling us about the biocharger. And so we go over there, we try it with him, and we did 3 different recipes, one for autism, one for the brain. And
the first time we did it wasn't with Jason and Lo. It was when we were having a bad day and we were like equally yoked in our grumpiness. And
That's a good way.
We stopped at a biocharger place and went in, and we're like, let's just try this thing. Let's see. And I told her, because I'm over 3 years sober now and in the program.
Amazing.
That was the closest I've felt to being high after being sober.
Wow.
And it was because the energy it emitted was like calming my whole body down. Like I was literally.
Goodness gracious.
It's the same way that some of the wellness stuff we've talked about.
Yeah, coming out of a cold plunge will do that. I feel like I always say like I've never taken cocaine, but I feel like 5 minutes after a cold plunge, that's about how high I feel. I imagine it would be.
I've never tried cocaine either, and it's funny because I just did a movie where I had to pretend that I was on it, and as I'm doing it, all these crew members are like, "That's not really what it's like." I had like 70 people come up to me and tell me what it was like to be high. And I was like, "Sorry guys, I wasn't out partying."
My bad.
But that feeling of the focus, the confidence, the things you hear about. You do get that from that. But when we did the biocharger, we were immediately like, okay, this kind of feels like a real thing.
Yeah.
So we investigated it by going over there.
And we went over to Jason Lowe's house, did it. And then the next morning, Harris jumped out of his crib and he said, "Good morning, Mama." And I'm like,
not true. Oh, wow. Well, that's the thing. I mean, just what you'll do for yourself and just what you'll do for your kids.
Yes.
And it's like,
anything.
Yeah, anything.
Oh, praise
anything.
God. That's
I'm like, I'll look
It's like the
crazy.
woman in the Bible who, like, it says she had gone to the doctor and tried every cure and had never been made better but made worse, but she still kept trying to get to Jesus, you know, for that issue of blood. You know, it's like the desperation will make you do crazy things. Yeah.
Like, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed.
That's incredible.
Okay, and then you got another son, a 1-year-old son.
Yes, Jonah Maverick.
Yeah. What great names. Okay, say both names.
Harris Boland Hauser and Jonah Maverick Hauser.
Strong middle names in this family.
Yeah.
I mean, coming from Walter, you know, I guess you had to keep the, you know, the standard raised high.
Walter was my maternal grandfather's first name, and he died when I was like 7, so I didn't have a ton of time with him. But what I loved about him is all the stories of like the stories. My dad's name is Paul, so I took after him with Paul Jr. or whatever. But Walter, my mom was insistent upon, and it's like all the stories I heard about the guy. It's like he loved boxing. He fought in World War II. He worked at this glass factory and he smoked these cigarettes and loved to drink this can of beer while watching the New York Mets, and then he'd go fishing. And it's like, it just sounded like a man that I could never be. Like it was like
unattainable. It's like he's Captain America or something.
To me, it is like factory life and a cig and a fishing rod. It just feels like this bit of committed masculinity that I, even at a young age, felt dwarfed by the shadow of. So I started putting his name on my homework assignments in like 7th and 8th grade. I started signing my homework Paul Walter Hauser. A lot of people think because of Screen Actors Guild, like, oh, you joined the Actors Union, you had to change your name.
Started using your middle name.
No, that was totally a personal flex, a silent flex.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like the people who can get away with like their middle initial is going to be a part of it, like John F. Kennedy. You know what I mean? Or like just this is going to be a middle name that's going to be utilized. For the rest of us mere mortals, our middle names will not see the light of day. You know, only our moms ever say our full names. You know, it's like, but
your middle name's pretty epic.
Aaron?
Levi Aaron Lusko. It's just very priestly.
It's
very Old Testament.
It is very
Old
Levitical.
Testament.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. the guys that were getting everybody else through the desert.
Yeah.
Totally.
Very important.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're pregnant again.
Yes, I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're very
and that's
excited.
public and announced.
Yes.
By this point, we can talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it now. Yeah, we're excited.
Super stoked. It was on purpose. We were super stoked. We were going for a girl, and we did the early, what is it called?
Sneak peek.
Sneak peek,
test.
where you can find out
You did
early.
blood
on
test.
blood test.
Yeah.
It's another boy.
I don't think it was a thing back in the day. We had to wait till we saw the ultrasound.
Yeah.
Technology just keeps spinning.
We're going to be running a
Yeah.
real asylum.
Running
A full
a-
fraternity.
boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
used to
with the
always say,
biohacking, they're going to have just so much energy,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
ready to take on everything.
I have a lot
That's
of
so
energy.
exciting. though.
That's a good point. We may need to pull back on that.
You guys get more.
on the
they get less.
procreation. Just,
No, I was going to say the biocharger.
oh, the
Let's
biocharger.
get these kids sluggish. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll actually go to bed on time.
Yeah, good luck with that. Is bedtime just wild? You know,
Yes.
The boys just out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Paul will be like, get them all riled up.
Oh, yeah.
He gets them all riled up.
It's
And I'm
a dad's
like, "Do you
job,
see
I
It's
me?
like,
feel
I'm
like.
yeah,
trying
all
to
wrestling is
calm
always
down."
at bedtime.
It's not even,
Yeah.
and it's not even wrestling for us. It's more me doing musical theater,
Yeah.
waiting for their approval. Yeah.
I'm like spraying lavender to put on calm music. And he's like, let's party.
Dimming the lights.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah, that backfired on us. We found out one of our kids was allergic to lavender. You know, it's like
no.
turns into Hitch. Her whole face starts swelling up. You know, it's like,
man.
yeah, it was wild.
I know that was
Yeah.
sad.
Aw.
Yeah. So are there allergies? Did the boys have any of that?
Gluten for Harris.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Jonas just got sensitive skin. But he's sensitive
Yeah.
all the way
I-
around.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Kids always get rashes too. You're just like, what $90 cream do we need to buy to
I
get these to
know.
go
Never
away?
ending.
Seriously.
That's gnarly.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm just going to put mayonnaise on them. Be like, we're going to try something different here because it won't go away. Like some
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know Lennox he's very sensitive.
Yeah.
He's sensitive in a lot of ways too, but his skin is so sensitive. So like
That's
if he
Jonah.
scratches, like he just gets hives.
Hypercolored.
Or like
Oh.
he and Levi bite each other like playfully. But whenever
One bite
Levi
a day.
does
It's our little
it's one
joke.
bite
You
a
only get
day.
one a day.
But
So-
whenever
so
Levi
funny.
does, he just like he gets hives in that spot, even if it's stuff that
Oh,
Lennox isn't
man.
allergic to. It's just so funny. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I mean, not funny, but it's interesting, and then it goes
Yeah.
away. But it's
Uh-huh.
just like
He's
he's
a
just
soccer player. I just saw
No,
those
tennis.
high socks
Just
he
tennis.
was
Oh,
wearing. I
yeah,
was like,
he
He's
was
just got a
wearing-
unique sense of style, you know.
I
dig
love it.
I dig it.
Love
Yeah,
it.
he was wearing a floral bathing suit, high knee-high socks. Yeah, he's wild. He's a wild man. He's very feral.
he had a
you know?
jacket on earlier.
Yeah.
so funny.
Okay, so life in Georgia, like what's like ideal family day? Obviously, you end the day with some musical theater. Like, what's you guys like happy if you got a family day? You're all home. What's like
Yeah.
what rejuvenates?
I would like to say too, it's not just me like out for attention. We early in our marriage, we like made songs up.
Oh, yeah.
We would like
love
randomly
it.
create songs.
I did musical
for our
theater
kids.
too.
Oh,
We had a thing where we're like, you know, when the kids say something bad to some other kid, we'll have that song where we stop and we go, hey, is that how we talk? Is that how we talk? Is that how we talk to our friends? Yeah. And then there was
That's so
another, what was the other
good.
one?
It's equal parts inspiration and discipline. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it works on both levels. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like,
Makes
I
us
I don't
stop
want to hear
and
that
think,
song
like,
again.
Uh-huh.
they do it again.
we have too many songs. We have like 40 songs.
know.
And we're
that's
just like,
amazing.
My
playing the
sister's
hits at night,
like,
and the
y'all
kids
need
are
to
like,
write these
"You guys are
down and
annoying."
sell
But
And
them.
they're all
those
made
will
up.
be-
You guys have made them all up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
those
that's
will
awesome.
be in their hearts and in their heads their whole
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, it's true.
For better,
You're
for worse,
teaching-
but like that's
Yeah.
awesome.
You're
Yeah, we
teaching
have fun.
values and story
Trying
and
to.
family
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
We're jazzed up. Diaper change is jazzed up.
It's got a little
need
beat
a
to
diaper
it.
change. I think we need a diaper change. Ooh, 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 ooh. Say what? Ooh, 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 ooh.
Amazing.
Dude, make it. We need
You
those
could
in
do
the
a
world.
The world
children's
needs it.
book or a children's record.
That's
you know,
what we need
just-
to do.
Each page could be a song,
Yeah.
like a book. It could be a dialogue.
Then you press the button on
Yes.
the
It
then we're
sings it
singing.
like the
Yep.
like the birthday card.
All right, we'll tithe to Fresh Life when we sell the books and it becomes a major seller.
Hey,
Yeah.
we just want a copy. That'll be
We
fun.
just want a
We just want
copy.
That's so
I
good.
love
No,
that so
I would
much.
say a good family day for us is usually
Wake up.
intentionality in the mornings.
Yeah, that's been really big with us.
Tell them
Starting-
about that. Talk about like
so,
our.
you
morning
started it first. I think you were hanging out with Mark Wahlberg, and Mark Wahlberg gets up at 4:44.
Oh, I've seen his
Oh.
morning routine
Yeah.
posted on Instagram. Is it real or is that just like
No,
Instagram?
real.
It's real, but he also the times change based on what he's doing at the time,
Yeah.
family or work. So like some days he's waking up at like 4:35, and that's a bit more normal for him. And then some mornings there was a morning that he's like, I woke up and worked out at 2:30. I'm like, what the heck?
That's the one I saw. It was like
with you?
prayer,
Wild.
breakfast, workout number 1, 18 holes of
Yeah.
golf, workout number 2, cryo again. Like I was
Yeah.
like, and it's like 7:30, and he's had 5 hours of. I was like, what
Yeah.
in the
We
heck?
were in Australia with him
Oh.
for 3 months, and he
Doing
Paul
a
would tell-
movie,
yeah, and
but
Paul would
he-
tell him,
But no, I when we met, my thing was like trying to get into yoga because I had started to
Yeah.
do this DDPY workout, and she's like an action. Unlike me, she's a real athlete. She did dance and all these things, cheerleading, all these things.
Oh,
DDPY is what?
Oh, I'm sorry. My buddy Dallas Page has a yoga system.
Gotcha.
He hates when I call it yoga. He's like, bro, it's called DDPY. I'm like, just call it yoga. It's
DDPY,
easier
yeah,
to
yeah.
get out there.
You just threw
DDPY.
just threw it down like nod in my
That
head.
sounds
like, yeah,
really
like
cool.
everybody knows what that is.
It's like it's an ex-pro wrestler who does yoga, but he like learned how to do old school calisthenics with new school yoga, and he kind
Yeah.
of made his own thing, and it's
transform some people's lives, right?
it changed some
wow.
people's
Yeah.
lives. And his whole thing now is he finds people in wheelchairs and then does like free training with them to try to get them.
Oh
and
my
he got this
gosh.
one guy who's a
Wow.
born again Christian named his wrestling name was like Lex Luger. He was a Green Bay Packer turned wrestler, and then now he's in a wheelchair. But he's gotten him to where Lex did his yoga, and now he can get out of his car without assistance and walk to his walker in the middle seat of his car and open. Like the guy's walking
from that.
Oh
from a
my
wheelchair.
That's like such a- yeah.
So that was, I think
Wow.
that's what turned me on to like wanting to do health and wellness. That was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then she and I both are just like, we need to drink more water. Hey, I noticed we bond when we work out together. Let's go to the Y in the morning.
Yeah.
Let's go on a walk.
Yeah.
And and then that combined with all her research into the scientific biohacking stuff.
Yeah.
It's like our mornings, we're at our best when we like, and we do it for each other. Some mornings we don't want to
Yeah.
get out of bed, but the best mornings for us are like, we wake up at 4:45, 5 a.m.
Get ahead of the
Go-
boys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go do a
That's the key.
devotion
Mhm.
and turn on worship music. Literally, sometimes a sermon if we're actually with it enough to like retain it. and I'll
Get in the
slam
gym.
my pre-workout, and you'll slam some sparkling water, some
Yeah.
LaCroix,
That's all I
some
can do
Diet
right now.
Coke, and
Yeah.
we'll work out rigorously, and then do the biocharger. And
Wow.
And
Take
so
our
is your
supplements.
workouts more yoga? Are you doing?
lately, I've gotten more into. My buddy Danny Joe got me really into just wanting to do weights and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll do a
Yeah.
little cardio. Love doing weights. Love doing crunches.
Because
Squats.
you're moonlighting as a pro wrestler. Like that's a thing. That's an actual thing
Oh,
that's
It's a real
happening.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like
Amazing.
Is that
a one-off.
moonlighting, or are you just is this the new thing? Are you an actor who wrestles or a wrestler who acts? Like
Oh,
which?
what is it? Tell
What
us.
is it?
Because bro, I've seen some footage. It's wild. Have you seen? Have
amazing.
you
You
seen
showed
him
me.
wrestling?
You
I mean,
showed
it's like
me, yeah.
you're jumping off the ropes backwards, slamming guys down, like
Uh-huh.
fake slapping guys across the
It's
face.
fun. Well, they're real slaps.
Okay.
They're just
They're real
they're
The
slaps.
just
first
not-
time I was like,
I haven't seen you break a chair off anyone's back yet. Has that happened?
No, that's coming.
It's
That'll-
coming.
That'll
You did a
happen in April
table.
probably.
I mean,
I've been put through some tables, and I'm gonna be putting guys through. I have some matches coming up where I'm gonna be doing some pretty crazy stuff that I
Wow.
won't tell my wife about until after it happens.
yeah.
so
That's how you
I
do it.
do.
So
need,
we're-
I need
yeah.
you to come back to your morning workouts, but I want to like just take a little parenthetical rabbit trail and just figure out because I know you grew up like watching
I grew
wrestling.
up watching it, when I was a kid. Like,
Who was your favorite wrestler?
I always loved this guy Sting.
Oh yeah, sure.
Who was really big more in the South in this company called WCW. And he was kind of like, to me, he was like a less obnoxious Hulk Hogan, where he was like, not in your face so much all the time because Hogan was so famous. And then it was funny. I used to pray when I was a little kid. I used to pray for all my sports heroes at night.
Oh my
Very
god.
good.
The way you would like pray for your relatives
Aw.
and be like, I hope they start believing in God, and I hope
Oh.
she is okay with her divorce, and I hope he gets over the flu. And then at the end, I would be like, and Jesus, please be with Brett Favre and Michael Jordan and Sting,
Yeah.
and help them
my
all to become
gosh.
Christians,
That's
and help
super
them to all.
nice.
That's precious.
This whole like thing, but it's funny because he became a born again Christian like 99 or something, and now like he's very open about it. And I've since met him. I was at his last match, and I had a moment where I was like, "Man, I used to pray for you all the time when I was a little kid."
You tell him
And
that?
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh," and he hugged me and my friend and
sweet.
my brother. It was crazy.
That is precious.
That's really
Yeah.
Oh, I
sweet.
gnarly.
love that.
But yeah, no, I just always loved wrestling. I never grew out of it. I know a lot of people are like, it's fake, but it's like, dude, John Wick is also fake.
Yeah, right.
Like, Star Wars is, you're not going to buy it.
You don't actually steal puppies. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
No,
You're not
Cruella,
Horace. Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
I kid you not, when we were promoting Cruella, we had to have that conversation where there were people who didn't support the film because of what Cruella
Cruelty
does
to
in
animals.
the lore of 101 Dalmatians. And I was like, do you guys understand what's going on in Washington
story.
and
Yeah.
how people you vote
Yeah.
for are robbing you blind,
Yeah.
but
In real life.
but
But
you're
you're mad
upset
about
about a
the
Disney
puppies.
movie or a wrestler not actually bleeding?
Seriously.
Those Dalmatians in that movie need to be put down. They're so scary.
They do.
They're
look
rabid
scary.
and murderers, bro.
Yeah.
They're murder dogs.
You just earned the banner at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah, you did.
The thing you said about the dogs. I could talk about any party fueled night in Hollywood. It would
The
not
on-screen
upset
dogs.
people more than what he just said
I
about the
have
movie.
gotten
true,
the
it's
ire
true.
of like some PETA action. Like it's wild. I
They're
went
serious.
fishing in Texas with a friend and caught a snapping turtle
Mm.
and held the snapping turtle up and
Like a prehistoric
have you seen a snapping turtle?
Yeah.
Like a real
turtle.
thing?
Oh,
They're
yeah,
scary.
it's
They're
gnarly.
scary.
They're horrible.
Well, I posted a video of me holding the snapping turtle and somehow it got on the radar of some like that it was cruel. I put it back in the water. It lived. It's totally fine. We just caught it and then, released it. But man, it was like for a long time, every day I'd open up Instagram and it was just how cruel, how mean. So yeah, you don't
It
mess.
may have lived, but it might have PTSD now.
Ooh.
So how well did it live?
Bro, it
Levi?
looks like Bowser from
true.
Super Mario
It's so
Brothers. I'm like, this thing could live through a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
this
yes.
thing will
they're
outlive all of
scary.
us.
Yes.
They'll like
Yes.
hiss at you.
Oh.
Out of the deep back of their throat,
You
like
can hear it.
in a
I
real
still-
awful way.
I still kill spiders on occasion. I've been better at it where I'm like trying to like just get on the windowsill, let me do
Yeah.
the thing.
To be clear,
Help me help you.
the on-screen portrayal of those Dalmatians was savage. I'm not saying in real life any Dalmatians need to get
No.
put down. They were
Yes.
just
To
they
be
were
clear.
murderers. They were
Yeah.
murderers. You
They're
know.
like
Oh, yeah,
drooling.
they killed her mom.
Yeah, man. That's not
Sorry,
good.
spoiler alert.
Spoiler
You
alert.
had 5 years to
If you
watch
haven't
it.
seen it now, it's on you. I also think it's interesting that we're getting like all the prequels. Like Mufasa
Oh,
is the
yeah.
prequel.
Yeah.
So this was the origin story of Cruella,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the current modern.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
that was
right.
the prequel thing, and that's like the studio thing where they're like, "How do we?" I was talking to Imagine Entertainment about this at Ron Howard's company. I had a meeting with their executives for a project they ultimately didn't buy from me. I was bummed, but I said to them, I go, "Why does everyone in Hollywood need me to like reinvent the wheel for them? Like every time I take a meeting, they're always like, so what is the movie really about?" And I'm like, it's a fun, like it's a good, like, what do you need from me? And I
Right.
told this woman, I said, rather than try and reinvent the cheeseburger and be like, check it out, it's a deconstructed burger. I put a burger in a cone, or it's a burger. I was like, can't we just make a really good $10 cheeseburger?
Yeah.
Come
And
on.
she was like, yeah, why can't that be? It's like,
Seriously,
but
say
I
that.
think
Although
studios
low
now
key,
are
a burger cone.
doing that.
I mean,
That was smart, honey. Was that off the
Convenient.
cup? You been dreaming
hamburger
about
in a
that?
cone.
maybe chicken in a cone,
I'm
a
just
waffle
thinking-
That
cone.
sweet and that
Could the
meat.
cone
Yes.
be the bread? You know what I mean? And you eat the cone at the
Yep.
end, and the bread, the meat's all
Oh,
down
they
in it.
do that in is it Brooklyn? I showed you that Instagram video.
You did.
The
But yes.
the Italian cone. They do
Yes.
like
Yeah, it sounds
they
delicious.
do like they hollow out French bread and they fill it with meatballs, sauce, and cheese on top.
Oh.
People just eat the whole thing.
Oh,
It's like when
that
you have the
sounds
sushi
amazing.
hand
It's
rolls;
dirty.
those are delicious. You know,
Amazing.
so yeah. Just,
but no, sorry to go back to your thing. The wrestling thing is something I never graduated from and thought was super fun. And
okay.
was
So
like,
how
I'm
did
gonna
you
try
get
it.
approached? Like, how did you try out? Like, were you just like, woke up one day, you know what? That's today's the
No,
day.
some dude asked me
my
to-
knees are feeling strong. Let's go for it.
Some dude asked me, my buddy Sammy Callahan asked me, do you want to help raise money for Hawaii? Because they had just
Oh,
had
yeah.
The Maui fire.
And
Yeah,
that's
the
how you
Maui Fire.
approached it with me, because I'm like, oh, a charity,
Well, it
like,
was
let's
true,
do
too.
Oh,
it.
you knew she couldn't say no to
that.
Yes,
Yes.
Honey,
yes.
it's for Maui.
Uh-huh.
And
You
like
know?
2
I'm
weeks
like, I love
later,
Hawaii.
2 weeks later, he's like, do you want to wrestle instead of just do like a cameo? And I was like, I've wanted to wrestle my whole life. Like there was a moment where Dallas Page let me go in a ring and he's like, take a bump, bro. And I was like, all right. And I did this thing where you crouch down, your butt's maybe 2 feet off the mat. It's not like a big bump, but you just let yourself fall back without bracing yourself and you take the hit
On the
and
mat.
on the mat. And it was the first time I had done it. And something magical happened where, and I kid you not, it was almost emotional where the sound I'd been hearing my whole life of wrestlers hitting the mat coincided with me feeling it physically. And it was like something clicked where I was like, oh, I'm going to do this at some point. I don't know when. I don't know how. I told her before we got married too. We had a conversation. I vividly remember.
I was like, yeah, right.
Where I was like,
Just so
just so you know, this is something I'm going to do at some point. It might be 2 matches. It might be 50, but like and she was like, okay, yeah.
Buyer
probably.
beware. Did you wrestle in high school? Like,
No,
had you have any competitive training?
No, I ended up training with other wrestlers at some point and doing it, but like I very much just dove into it and was like, I've been watching it my whole life. I already know some of the memory type stuff of like the movement. And like I did like dance stuff. Like I was
Which it is like kind of a bit more like that, probably.
The choreography.
Right. It's very much akin to the choreography. And I've done stunts on movies and TV shows. So like,
which you love to do.
Right. I dive headfirst in the stunt stuff. The stunt performers are always pissed at me where they're like, dude, I came here and dressed up to look just like you.
But you choose to do it yourself.
Yeah, because I want to do it.
Little Tom Cruise in you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hanging
What
on the side of
about
airplanes.
in Cruella when you fell into the cake?
No, I asked if I could do that.
And they said no.
It was like an insurance thing where they're like, they won't let you do it. And I was like,
That's a great scene. That whole sequence in the house is
So
fantastic.
So good.
so fun.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I love, there's this thing that I did. It was like CGI where they said, now you catch the key. They're going to throw the key up to you. Or, Emma Stone throws the key. And I did a thing where you just mime it because they're going to add it into the editing. And I just went, and I pretended to almost drop it. And it's so cool to see that like they made it look like that from my little improv.
They worked
thing
with what you got.
Yeah, it's like really like a small like bit of movie magic that like tickles you thinking about like the process.
And is there a lot of improvisation, or is that because that's like an example of you going a little bit rogue from script, right?
Tiny thing. Yeah, no, I improvise a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff my whole thing with improvising is like I would rather ask forgiveness than permission. And also you vibe it out. You're only doing it to test the waters too to, if someone really doesn't like it, I'm not going to force it upon them.
And is it more of a straight take than you do your others, or vice versa?
Straight take, like 1 to 3 straight takes. Then when I feel like we got it, it's like, oh, I'm going to add this word, or I'm going to try this inflection, or I'm going to, and also I pre-write most of my improv. Rarely is it like
properly
improvised. It's usually me going, well, this is cool. Like I wrote a whole monologue for myself for a TV show called Bupkis with my buddy Pete Davidson. And it was literally me, because he wanted me to play myself in rehab with him. So it's like me, him, Machine Gun Kelly, all these guys are in like a celebrity rehab thing. And I wrote because I was like, how do I play drunk or high or whatever? Like I haven't done this in a while. So I wrote from the perspective of how I was feeling the summer of 2021 after I'd missed my son's birth and had been in this dark place.
It's in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wrote this whole monologue and they kept it, and they were like Pete got choked up while I was reading, and he was like, man, that's like.
It came from a real place.
Yeah. So it's like even the improv is like kind of pre-written 80% of the time because it's something I thought would enhance it, or it tickles me and I want to try something.
Wow.
Okay, now, how many like wrestling matches a year? Like, is it?
We're gonna keep talking about this.
So
like,
funny.
is there a contract? Is it
no
just
contract? I've been offered a contract by a gentleman, a friend of mine, and I kind of said to him like, I don't think it behooves me to be tied down one place right now.
Yeah, behooves is a good word.
It was.
It is a good word.
It's there between reciprocity and tertiary, and my favorite,
right? Fiduciary. Yeah, it's a big word.
Erudite.
Yeah.
But no, I'm gonna do it as much as it makes sense. I also make a little bit of money doing it too. They'll throw you a little bit of money and you can sell some merch, and it's almost like being in like a less famous band or something where you show up.
It does seem like actors tend to have something on the side like that, like like the band or the it's like the
creative
outlet. Play the harmonica. Yeah. It's so sad that a creative needs a creative outlet, but that's totally
it's
what
true.
it is.
Something different.
The guy Casey, he's got like a country band. He like literally goes around and does that. And
Cole Hauser started a coffee company.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like there
Dennis
tends to be.
Quaid.
It's like almost like the equivalent of like. If you work with your mind, you want to have a hobby with your hands.
Yep.
If you work with hobby with your hands, you work with your mind. Like,
because I love cooking too, and that's a handsy thing.
Where it's so different from what you do in your day job.
Well, she uses her hands with the kids, and then her brain is going a mile a minute creatively. Like she has so many ideas for documentaries and books and nonprofit stuff that I'm just like, I'm always in awe of like we need to make more time for you to let these things breathe and come to
Your
life.
background is film production too, right?
Yeah, I helped produce one movie, The Tiger Rising, with Dennis Quaid and Queen Latifah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which shot in her hometown.
It
so
shot
she
in my
was like
hometown, so I was like
the
on the
boots
ground.
on the ground.
Oh
like,
my
she was
gosh.
hooking everything up.
That's
I loved it.
incredible.
And you said like you came to life like, oh my gosh, this is the
Yeah.
world I was kind of made for.
Oh, yeah. I was a kindergarten teacher, so that's pretty much what a movie set's like. It's like all these different things going on at one time. You're like,
And the
okay, you're
actors are
doing
like the
this.
children.
Yep. It's like...
Stop
like,
eating the glue.
You're not supposed to be doing that. Stop it. Get back
Yes,
over here.
yes.
You're like,
You went to the
it is
bathroom in the
similar.
corner. Yeah.
Yeah, so I loved it. I came
Managing
alive.
emotions.
Yeah, and I love live events, and I think that was my background too. So as a kindergarten teacher, I did live events, helped promote with passion.
And what did you do at Six Steps?
So David Crowder was coming out with the Neon Steeple tours after he was coming. They'd stopped David Crowder Band and were relaunching, and so I just came in to help with the marketing and the tours of that. So I got to do the tours with Christian and the band.
Wow.
And I love it. I think I love just creating spaces and opportunities for people to see Jesus and like whatever role that is that God has for me in that. I'm like, all right, let's go, let's do it. And so anyway, I love the production side of things. And so when my friend was like, you should try movies. And I was like, what? Like, how would I even do that? He was like, come out to LA. He was like, I'll have you meet with some people. And then he was like, we're doing a movie in Thomasville. Why don't you come do it? And I was like, all right, I'll try it. And then one of my first days on the job, they're like, I looked up your IMDb. You don't have anything. And I was like, and my friend was like, I'll make you one. Don't worry. It's like, you have no credit and you're a producer. What are you doing? And then at the end, that guy came up to me and he said, I have to tell you, you earned it. You are a producer. I was like, thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
it was really sweet.
incredible.
Yeah.
Do you
my
see a day where
goodness.
you return to that?
Oh, yeah. I have a documentary I want to do. So we're...
Jenny's a documentary freak. That's like
I love
she's
watching.
discovered
Not
it. That's
producing,
That's
watching.
more of her happy
Yes.
place than books or
Yes.
or
That's us.
Yeah, that's one of our
Podcasts.
bonding things is
she loves
Yeah.
on an airplane. She's always in some documentary.
I
Yeah.
love to learn and just
Same.
figure things
you
out.
can be entertained while being educated. There's something super special.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
Beautiful.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, right now, obviously, you are producing in
Yes.
the house. It's a
And
full-time
yeah,
job.
Human.
Very high level. And then I'm relaunching a ministry that I had called the 61 Exchange. It's from Isaiah 61 that Jesus gives beauty for ashes. And I just want to teach people how to tell their stories and have them share their stories.
Wow.
So I ran it for about 5 or 6 years, and then COVID and life happened. And so I was like, you know what, Lord, I'm going to put it on pause, but one day you'll breathe back into it. And so now,
Just recently, it's
yeah,
been
God just made it super clear. And then with the fires in LA, the word ashes just kept coming back to me. And I was like, all right, God, it's time for beauty from ashes.
Wow.
And then another cool God thing was she was talking to me about, because it's like, it's not cheap or free to like create the website and do the output and all this
Right.
stuff. But like, I know her, she and I are very similar, whether I'm cooking a meal or she's starting a business or a website. It's like, we want to do things with excellence. We want to do it well. And she was giving me this number and I was like, I don't know if that's like in our budget right now. And I literally, I said it in a loving way, but was also like, oh God, another thing. And then I said to God in my head, she didn't hear it obviously, but I was like, Lord, I want this for her, but I know where we're at right now. If you think this should happen, show me the money. Kind of like Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
And literally the next day, I checked my residual
We're on the
tracker.
plane here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yesterday.
we're on the plane here.
I checked my residual tracker, and there was a residual for Cobra Kai that would pay for the whole like
Thing.
output of the. And I was like,
Won't
Oh,
he do
God.
Yeah.
it was
And
sick.
I was
dude.
like,
it was almost
so
to the almost like to the
good.
dollar.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, I was so encouraged. I was like, all right, Lord, yes, yes, yes. Like, you want this to happen. This is something that breathed life into people and gave them hope.
And I have to like also approach God like, you know, like I'm going to her father, like it's her dad. That thing, the idea of like, I love this girl. I want everything for her.
Wow.
Please help me do that. And then believe that like
That's so sweet.
God's going to show up. And
Gosh.
sometimes not the way you're envisioning, but like the way that it needs to be. And,
Yeah.
and you know, I know how I would feel if my dreams were totally dormant or on pause, and I would get this itchy psycho feeling eventually, and I don't want her to ever feel that.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow, you guys.
Yeah.
That's
He's
incredible.
really sweet at balancing because, you know, obviously his job has to take precedence over, you know, what we're doing as a family. but you also create space for me to flourish. And I saw that. I helped start Passion City Church in DC and lived around the corner from Ben and Donna. And his mom lived with us.
Oh my
I didn't know that.
gosh.
And so, which I love them so much. But I
They're the
saw
best.
that.
So
They
you
are
lived in
amazing.
DC in that era.
Yeah. So helped start that when we first got there, the first 2 years. But I got to see their family up close. And I remember.
Were you out there when we came out? I came out in COVID. Were you gone by then?
Yep, I was gone by then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I just remember seeing how Ben would give Donna space to create because she's such a creative and she's an artist.
Songwriter.
Beautiful
She just recently
songwriter.
wrote a song for a
Hallmark.
movie, for
Yeah.
Jenna Claire's movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So now she's got that credit too.
Yes,
like
I wonder-
what is it? To give her some sort of like singing equivalent of a SAG card kind of a thing, right?
I think so.
Oh,
Writer.
Where she's got like an industry, whatever. Yeah.
Accreditation or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I had a movie that I wanted to make. It was from, who was the author? Bridge to Haven. Anyway, I gave the script to Donna and I was like, if you could create anything, like what song would you create? She wrote the most beautiful song. So now I'm like, I have to make this movie. But anyway, I saw the way that he gave her room to flourish. And like as women, like I feel like a husband does that and you do that so well. So I'm grateful for that.
It helps that your ideas and stuff are all good too. Like, it'd be one thing if she was like,
Thank
I
God.
want to create the easy bake oven, but
I want 3 pet giraffes.
Yeah.
Like, ugh, we'll pray about it, honey.
boy.
Yeah.
Babe, we're going to buy a ranch in Montana.
I don't think we
Well,
need
that
a
one,
lemur.
Ooh.
we're
I don't
big
think we
fans
need a
of
lemur.
Montana. Y'all
Yeah.
ought to come out here. But
But it's so beautiful because it also sounds like you have an open hand to the things that God puts in you. And so, and it also seems like you have the gift of faith, like to see, okay, I think this is something that God's putting in me. Like even in your guys' story
That's
with
true,
your
that's for
marriage, like
sure.
I
Yeah.
see this. It's not coming to fruition right now,
Yeah.
but I see it.
Oh, yeah.
And then getting
Yeah.
to see him
and being willing
provide
to fight for it
and
through difficulty and
Oh, yeah.
adversity.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
got some fearlessness
I think-
with the faith, big time.
Yeah, I think after being under leadership of Louis Giglio and Ben, if I'm going to sit in on Sunday
Ben Stewart,
morning, Ben
yeah,
Stewart,
yeah.
and listen to their sermons and say yes and amen and believe it. It's like when I get to a chance to walk it out, I was like, I'm going after every promise
Oh my gosh.
he spoke of. I'm going
Yeah.
after everything. It's kind of like giving a child a saying, I'm going to give you a cupcake, and like you tell a 3-year-old you give them a cupcake, like they're coming after it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that was me, like with our
By the
story.
way, she and I, if you tell
Wow.
us you have a cupcake, we're coming in.
Yeah.
It's not just
Yeah.
for adolescents. That's an ideology we subscribe to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially
Yeah.
in DC, there's some good cupcakes too.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
Baked
red
in wire.
velvet.
Baked in wire, the
Georgetown.
red velvet.
Ooh, the chai,
Yes.
that's a chai. I didn't like
Yes.
chai in real life.
Same.
But the chai
Same.
cupcake at Baked in Wire,
Yes.
that's life changing, man.
Yeah.
There's a
So
line
true.
when it opens. Have you been to that place?
I haven't,
No.
but there's a cupcake place, and you'll remember the name. I don't remember the name, but what was the cupcake I had? It was a carrot cake cupcake in LA. And I had it, and it was like I wanted to
Oh,
cry
that
when I
just
bit
sounds
it.
Yeah,
amazing.
when you
Is
bite
that
into it and you
is
just
that
like,
where they
you just
had
like,
the
I need to
Tom
stop
Cruise
and just
cake?
think about things.
Yeah.
A Tom Cruise cake?
No, not that one.
That man's never eaten a cupcake. He takes his shirt off in the new Top Gun. I'm like, you're 60 years old.
No,
Stop. That man, he
obsessed
didn't
with
even look
Doan's
at a
Bakery.
cupcake.
Yeah. Don's Bakery. So
Don's
if he
Bakery
goes
is
on
his
set
thing.
and
And
there's
he eats them?
no,
he gifts them
he
to
gives
people.
them
Oh,
to
yeah.
people.
I
And
don't
so
He
know if I've
watches
ever
them
seen
eat it
him
in
You know
a.
he eats his food intravenously. That guy's not
Probably.
eating real food. You know what I
No,
mean?
he's got a tube,
They're
like
handing
a
him
food
slurry and
catheter.
he just drinks it.
Yeah.
And
He's got a food catheter.
I
Sorry.
think so.
Probably.
But
I
he
mean-
brings them. He brings them.
he
and
brings
has
them
a-
on set and to whoever he's working with, he brings them on set.
Gifts
And so-
them to people.
That's
Yeah.
Aw.
A friend of
That's
mine was
nice.
on the Top Gun Maverick movie, and so she was like, he brought this to set, and it was so good. So she went to Don's Bakery and got one, and I had, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you understand when you take a bite, it's like
white chocolate chips
Yeah, just
inside of
astounding.
like a regular cake, but
Coconut.
covered with coconut. It's a heart attack in the box, but it is amazing.
But is that man,
Gosh.
like, I'm not just wanting to stay here for a long time, but how in the world is that? Has he looks so good? I mean, I
I don't
realize he has
know.
every technology afforded to him and many that, that we'll never have
don't
access
know
to,
about.
He's
I'm
a
sure he
he's
sleeps in a
handsome
cryo
guy,
chamber.
but his face is aging. Where he like
Sure.
he definitely looks
Starting
like he's
to.
in his 50s, but or 60s. He's
Yeah.
doing a good job. Whatever
Yeah.
he's doing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's a good looking man. That's all I'm saying.
She got me on this. I used to never. God, I'm such a boy, not a man. I had no facial cleansing routine. I'm like I would take a bar of soap out of a hotel.
Like, I got
Just be
some Dove.
like I'm a sailor or a pirate. Like not
There's
even
the
a
wording.
normal human being, just like a guy in a lighthouse whose wife died 30 years ago. who's like scrubbing his beard with a bar of soap. That's me. And then she introduced
like a convict. Yeah, that's how a convict washes his face. Surely,
she introduced me to like a skincare routine, and I've become so like weirdly reliant on it, where like it's a fun, obsessive thing.
How many steps are there?
Just a few. She does like 41.
Yeah.
She's like
an acid peel.
This girl's like our railroad Baltic Avenue.
She has to start at 4:15 p.m. for an 8 o'clock bedtime.
Yeah, Paul's like, go ahead and start your nighttime routine.
I have 3 hours. I'm going to have to just cut it down to the bare essentials tonight.
Yes, I'm a little more, what do? I do a scrub, a cleanser.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have a toner.
Yeah.
And then a couple different oils to like moisturize.
What about like an under eye thing?
I do what is it called? Pruniers, Le Prunier.
Yeah.
They have a plum oil that smells like
Oh.
He started using it, and his makeup artist was like,
"Oh yeah,
what do
no."
you have
People on
him
set
using?
who've like worked with me, they're like, "You have great skin," and I'm like, "I'm not used to getting those types of compliments."
I don't know how to handle that. Yeah,
I actually thought that. Like, I was like, man, I wonder what he does with skin. I
nice.
thought about that. It's funny because when we were 30, you were teaching a series through like, was it You in 5 Years or something like that?
About skincare.
Yeah, like he even was like, there were people who, it was like a study done where there were people who would put sunscreen on every single day, no matter what.
Like a low SPF sunscreen every day.
And then people who would put it on only if they thought they needed it.
Like if they were going to be around the sun.
Yeah.
And they have these two controlled groups. And for 7 years, they did that. And at the end of the 7 years, the people who put it on every day, no matter what, even if they were going to be inside all day, they had very, very little discernible signs of aging. The people for 7 years who had put it on, if I'm in the sun, I'm going to wear a high SPF power, they had aged markedly.
Wow.
The point is you get more sun than you think.
Yep.
Interesting.
And so the way I used it in the sermon was what's true of your skin is true of your soul.
Ooh,
so you don't just read the Bible when you think you need it. You don't just go to church when you think you need
It's
it.
really good.
Because you're getting more access to temptation and bombarding with, the devil's SPF or whatever rays than you think.
Yeah.
So part of that sermon was we both got into skincare
like
as well.
At 30, I feel like.
That's so
and
good.
we just like had all the things. We just went into a store and we're like, what do we need for?
Yeah.
It's a good time to make that pivot too, actually.
Yeah, because the mileage really starts to increase dramatically around
you
the
start
edges.
having kids.
Yeah.
Oh, but then there's like a safe, I enjoy it. It's like the rhythm of doing that. It's like,
kind of a nighttime wind down ritual.
And morning different, but
Rituals people don't talk about that very much. Like I remember listening to a buddy of mine who has a podcast, and he was talking about like the fact that he doesn't smoke cigarettes anymore, and he was doing nicotine lozenges, and now I think he's doing the little pack things.
Oh, dude, everyone's on that Zen life. Yeah, everyone's
always about that Zen life. But he talks about like there's a ritual to it too of just like finding the right cigarette after you pack it, and then pulling it out, and then doing the like. It is funny how we attach ourselves to rituals, and we think that it's the phone or the coffee or the thing, but really it's like you could recreate that. And I think you talk about this in the book, I Declare War, where it's like, you can't erase it, you replace it, right?
That's exactly right.
Yes.
And by the way, thank God for this. I used to make fun of pastors all the time. I hated when they'd rhyme everything or use a bunch of alliterations. I'm like, congrats, that was 4.
Good job.
You did 4 C's in a row, you genius. But now I'm like loving it because that is a great way to help people like me memorize it.
Yeah.
Totally,
and it's like,
totally.
It's like you almost need to replace things and remember that no, you're addicted to the ritual. Yeah. And that's not indicative of anything wrong with you. That's human to like a ritualistic thing.
Yeah.
Just find a healthier ritual,
Absolutely.
be it reading the Word of God or watching a documentary or doing a skincare routine or getting in a sauna and cold plunge.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's so true.
Yeah. Now you've been real. I mean, you just mentioned a minute ago, vocal and open about your sobriety journey. Outside of the steps in the program, have there been some replacement things like that you would go to fill that time when you would?
You could probably help me answer that too, because you're an observer of the vast majority of things I do.
Yeah. I think you've
including our open door policy with the toilet.
To each other?
No, I'm mostly kidding.
Yeah. We're on the firewall on that side of things. Yeah. I'm like, I'm almost a mystery in our relationship.
I kiss her on the forehead when she's sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
It's me just walking up going, hey, I know this is awkward for you, but I think it's funny.
My sons will come up and
There's-
just come hang out. I'm
Oh
like, I
my
just want
gosh.
5
She's like,
minutes.
"Have I been left
Yes.
alone,
Yeah.
please?"
Like he can go watch a wrestling match in the bathroom for 20
Anything.
minutes.
I don't know what
And then
she's
the boys are
talking
like,
Good
about.
for you. 20 minutes is too
I
long.
don't know what she's
20 minutes
talking
is
about.
too
It's
long.
only Charles Spurgeon.
Yeah. Charles Spurgeon.
No, we found beauty in closing the door and matches.
Matches. We travel with
Yeah.
matches. It's
Gangster.
like, yeah, right.
We have some pooper
Gangster
spray.
move.
But dude, there's nothing that covers it up like some good smoke. You know, that's all. You
Yeah.
need. Yeah.
That's all you
Yeah.
need.
Can we talk about my wife who was throwing the matches in the toilet and flushing them? She's like, no. You're supposed to do that.
That's what I always
like,
no,
it's
thought.
disintegrate.
you're
I just
not.
run them under the water and throw them in the trash can.
That's
Yeah.
what I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Because you're not. Because
Well,
you're.
usually I'm
because
mad because you just leave it like that.
I don't
So I'm
know
like walking
what
there.
she's talking about.
Yeah.
My poop. It smells like rose
The
water.
question is,
Yeah,
what
get here.
did he replace
What
with?
did I replace with? Yeah.
I think most recently, you'll say, I'm going to go down to the gym and get on the treadmill. And it's just kind of like that rush and that adrenaline.
Getting it out of your system, I think.
Yeah.
And you instilled that in me of like, maybe you just need to go fight it out of
Yeah.
your body, whatever
Well, and
anger.
my counselor told me that,
Yeah.
when you've got that anger, that aggression, or whatever it is that you're trying to mask, it needs to exit the body, whether that's through force or whatever. She's like, I
Yeah.
tell women, take a tennis ball, hit it up against a tree, or throw lemons at a tree. And for men, it's hit something, get a trash can.
I'll enjoy a cigar here and there. I don't overdo it. I'm not like smoking a cigar every week, but I got into cigars a little bit and Audible books on tape because I'm like so distracted that reading a book is like hard. I need to listen to it most days.
Yeah.
And then also just like being able to be present with the kids and play with them
Yeah.
has been a really nice, like
Mm-hmm.
fun thing. But as far as like the rituals, it's probably like cooking, working out, cigars. That's kind of the
Yeah.
thing.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How about sleep? You guys talk about skincare. Do you guys have like sleep things? Like,
I
Oh, yeah.
suck.
Are
at
you a
sleep.
hacker
I'm
at
gonna let her
sleeping?
take
Yeah.
this one.
Oh yeah. So we do these patches from LifeWave and it's called Silent Nights. And it's
We have name dropped so many products.
I know.
We better
We should
make
get
some
some
buku
deals.
products.
no product
Product drops
placements have
evidence.
been. Nothing's official.
But at least they're genuine. We
Yeah.
use all this
Right.
crap.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
didn't pay
it's
for
light
it.
Yeah.
therapy. So it uses the heat in your body to reflect back into your body.
This is a patch.
It's a
Life
little
Wave.
patch.
Where does it go on you?
Just on your temple, or it can go on your
What's it
arm.
called?
Life Wave.
That's what it's for. They do a
Only
thing.
on the
Right
right
here,
hand or
your
on the top
right
of your temple.
temple,
It's in
or in
Revelation.
between.
For some reason, it says 999 on it. I don't understand.
I think you might have it upside down.
I would just like to
They
point out that
insist right hand or top of your forehead.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Can we talk about the fact that someone has pointed out via meme that the Donald Trump hats are all these red hats that have a message right on the forehead?
I don't know. What to
I know
say
you
about
got to
that.
keep your job, but I'm just saying it's pretty frightening.
Whoa. Wow.
So for sleep, we do.
Yeah, nice transition.
That's President Trump to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, President Trump.
Don't excuse him.
No, he's to be fair, he's a really, like me, he's a well-spoken guy. What were you saying about skincare?
So for our
Nighttime
sleep
routine?
routine,
Sleep.
we use a humidifier that has essential oils in it. We
Yep.
do the patches, and it helps with sleep.
We have an air purifier.
Air
What's the company
purifier,
called?
the Air Doctor.
Air Doctor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. They have these satin pillowcases that are amazing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do have a good
Do you do like a
sleep
melatonin
rhythm.
or anything like
And
that?
then she snores and then I don't sleep. That's
Okay.
my nighttime
That is
routine.
not true.
Okay, well, I've been
You
a snorer my
snore.
whole marriage until recently. Because, man, I'm telling you, I know you've seen it everywhere and it's annoying, these things, but the tape is
Are you talking about the mouth?
life-changing. Both the nose and the mouth.
Okay.
So the breathe right strips that the NFL guys wear,
uh-huh.
it opens up your nose and you can breathe through your nose. Like I've had a hard time breathing through my nose. I broke my nose when I was little a bunch of times, falling off a trampoline, falling off a bunk bed, getting
Yeah.
punched in the head. And
Looks
so
good though, by the way.
It's a
It's
little
not
crook.
like
It's
the,
got a little-
doesn't have the. You're not full Owen
I'm
Wilson.
not full
though.
Owen Wilson, but I'm on my merry little way.
Yeah, you're
but
more
I
of
will
a
say,
Luke Wilson. Yeah.
I'll tell you though, that when you put one of those on, have you ever worn one?
No.
You put one on, and all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, this is how the rest of the world breathes,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So now you
Should
can breathe.
breathe.
But then, yeah, man, throwing that mouth tape on, I don't snore anymore. And she's had a harder time sleeping because she got so used to my snoring for 20 years.
It's like her own sound
So
machine.
now
My
the
sound
snore's
machine's gone. So now I need to figure out.
So if we're going to
My
kiss, we have
sleep
to decide before I tape myself in. It's a real, but if she comes in and it's already on, she's
That's
like, oh, I
amazing.
guess there's no smooching tonight.
I guess we didn't resolve that fight in the kitchen.
I mean, now I look
Totally.
like
It's
an
amazing.
absolute psycho. Like I'm going to
Oh,
bed
he
with
has
my
a
sleep
sleep
mask,
mask.
nose tape, mouth thing.
You look
That
like Hannibal
and
Lecter
then
walked out of a
My
house
retainer.
fire.
Yeah, dude, I've had to retape myself in because I forgot to put my retainers in right before I tape myself in. Like, I got to waste a tape. But
Whenever she wears her retainer thing at night, I always, if I kiss her goodnight, I feel like I'm breaking the law. It's so weird.
Yeah.
She looks like a 15-year-old all of a sudden. It's hilarious.
got to wear
Keep
your
her straight,
retainers though.
yep.
Yeah.
I had to have braces again the second time. I'm not
Yep.
making that
A
mistake.
second time?
Well, I
I
had
did
braces
too.
in high school, but didn't wear my retainers. And then I had to pay
Oh,
for
See,
it.
that's
that's-
saving you money.
That's
There you go.
by switching to Geico. That is our 8th name drop.
Okay, but so that's my one thing. I take
The
sleep
nose
very
thing,
seriously.
we're gonna
Nose,
check out.
try that first.
And the
Because you
mouth
started
tape.
with the nose,
Nose
and
for a while, I
that
just wanted
made a
to build
difference.
up. That was a big difference.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I track my sleep on my smartwatch.
Oh, nice.
And like I have like hard data. These things have helped my sleep get better, my REM sleep.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like I have this cooling mattress cover that pipes cold water on my side. She likes it hot. I like it cold.
What?
It puts hot water on her side, cold water on my side, so we can each have our own sleep temperature. And those things.
I
have
don't
made
go
a
on
big
his
difference.
side ever. He only comes to my side.
I come over and visit her,
amazing.
but then go back to my icebox. Do you guys have a different like preference and temperature?
It's just Phoenix
Not really. We like
next to
cold, but, like-
Denver. I love it.
Yeah.
You sleep on
Exactly.
top of the covers. I'm like, get the covers
Well,
over
most of, if I go under the covers, sometimes sometimes it's hard to fall asleep under the covers because I want to be airy and cool.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the night, I'll wake up and be like, ooh, it's kind of brisk. And then I go under the covers.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to it. It's interesting
Please
to try.
do.
And then again, it's like just one more thing because I feel like if you're not sleeping well,
Uh-huh.
everything's chopped.
Dude, it's the worst.
It's
Everything.
true. It's
It's
so
the
true.
worst.
Attitude.
Mhm.
She and I will have a thing where like we can have a couple nights of bad sleep and still show up for everybody. But I would say day 3, if you've had a third bad night of sleep,
Yeah.
that's when it's like
Yeah. But you've always had
100%.
problem sleeping.
after high school, man. When I was a kid, I used to sleep on my back easily. And like is there any sleep better than when you're a kid?
Oh,
You're just like,
honestly, you
Dude,
could sleep through
on,
anything.
you sleep on a concrete
Yeah.
pad. You
yeah,
know? I mean,
it's
this was
different,
great.
man.
Uh-huh.
Dude, now you sleep on the ground for one night and you're like, oh, I
couldn't.
I might
No.
never survive this. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Immediate
I need a
scoliosis.
massage.
So I just kind of, I'm in a place where I have been fighting to find a better sleep rhythm.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, if I was, having to admit, I should probably take a sleep test
Yeah.
and
Like
have
apnea?
it evaluated. What's
You
that?
think for like apnea?
Yeah, for apnea or just them being able to once again like medically track like what my
Totally.
sleeping vibe is, and then I could try to address it because I'm just kind of off and on. I'm like 2 days off, 1 or 2 days on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say like three to 4 times a week I have regular sleep. And
Yeah.
the other 3 I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, they say there's the
Crap.
studies will tell you they just go sleep in their lab for a night and they
Yeah.
tell you everything. You know?
Yeah.
I sleep on my belly now. And
Yeah.
that's tough too. It's like the one thing they tell you not to do. Lay on your
Yes.
side or your back.
Yeah.
And it gives you wrinkles because you're going face forward.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Ooh.
That sounds a little.
No, because it's all
Sounds
the
like a
gravity
Do
for
you
8
wear
hours.
a
Think about your
wearable that tracks
gravity.
you? Have you done the Oura Ring or the
Interesting.
Fitbit or the
I tried to
Garmin
get
or
one.
whatever?
Somebody bought me an Oura Ring as a gift and I lost it. I felt like such a jerk.
Yeah.
I gotta try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like these little Garmin watches. Like they track everything, your workouts and stuff, but then you
Yeah.
can also, they track
Garmin
your
makes
sleep.
watches. I
Yeah.
only knew them back when they made
Like GPS units and stuff.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. We're not sponsored
15th
by them, but we're big
15th
fans.
item that
Okay.
we've
And
mentioned.
the cool
That's
thing,
Garmin. GARMIN.
the cool thing
Go to
is,
Garmin.com,
they
type in
have-
the code.
no,
Lusko.
I don't have any promo codes
Oh,
over,
God.
but they do have.
He should,
and
though,
if
for
it
how
gets
many
mentioned,
times he
it's
talks
like you
about
said,
it.
it's because it's like I legit believe in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have kids ones too,
Oh,
and the
that's
kids
cool.
ones you can text them on. So like I can text Lennox on my phone
Oh,
to his
that's
watch and he
awesome.
can write back. And then I can also, you can like set up a fence where if they leave an area, it notifies you.
Oh,
If they
amazing.
get
It's
into a
very
panic
cool.
or
Child
like if they
tracker.
got kidnapped or whatever, they could summon,
And we travel
Wow.
quite a bit. So,
Yeah.
like, for them to know that they can text us or
Yeah.
whatever, I think it's really been sweet.
you might be a little
That's
bit
great.
young, 3,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah,
by
yeah.
5, that'd be kind of confident
Yeah.
building to have
That would
that,
be
you know.
amazing.
But the sleep stuff's amazing. It just gives you data,
Yeah.
You guys are good sleepers now, though. You're in a good rhythm.
This has really helped me.
I feel like you found a good rhythm, and you've been good about going to bed at a decent hour.
Not having rich and savory food close to bedtime. That's as bad as alcohol, they say.
Yep.
It's like digesting a big heavy meal an hour before bed. It's like
so stupid. And I do it sometimes because I'm also just the day got busy and I didn't plan it well.
But 2 a.m. you wake up, it's because that sugar all got worked through in your system, and now it's like, your body's kind of...
I thought French onion soup and a prime rib sandwich would have been a great movie.
Dairy Queen at 9:30 p.m.
Move.
That's crazy.
Stupid.
Okay, so do you guys all as a family go when he's on a shoot now, or does it just depend on how long the project's going to be?
Depends on the project, how long it's going to be. He did.
Also depends on the quality of the project. If I were like, babe, I'm going to be in Cincinnati for 7 weeks, I don't think you'd be like, I'm coming to Cincinnati. But like,
that makes sense.
Atlanta.
No offense to our friends in Cincinnati. I just mean, I think when we did Atlanta, it was great because she's got all these friends and family here.
Yeah.
All the Luskatiers, that's what we call our listeners, in Cincinnati, we're just like,
Oh, we're sorry.
I did that on Christmas Eve, man. I bashed Kansas for whatever reason.
Oh, no.
Well, you didn't bash Kansas. You just
I
kind
did.
of, you were flippantly like,
okay, so I said,
them.
I've been to every state Route 66 runs through but Kansas. And then I go, and I'm okay with that, and I said, but someone out there just got sad in Kansas. Well, I get a letter in the mail from a guy in Kansas.
Oh, no.
Literally, he sends me a book on how great Kansas is.
But he was
that
so
was
sweet.
He was
He was
about
really
it,
sweet about it, yes.
Passionate about his place.
Don't know why he did the bloody handprint on the title page. I thought that was weird.
The letter was entirely cut out of magazines, If you want to see your dog again, come to Kansas.
If you want to see your cold plunge again.
You ingrate? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wait, sorry. Oh, the idea is like just the delineation of an exotic vacation type place versus a regular town, which, we had a lot of fun in I almost said Hawaii. I meant Australia.
Yeah.
Did you all go to Australia?
Yeah. We were there for
3 months. It was a trek. We got our son in a school.
Yeah.
Into an
that's
Aussie school.
Yes.
Jeez. They start teaching him how to say crikey immediately.
He'll say purple.
Day one.
He'll still say
my
purple.
gosh. Oh,
Aw.
that's
dolphin,
precious.
Jonah.
Where in Australia were y'all?
I had a really
Gold
good joke to
Coast.
make, and I'm not gonna
That's
make
like,
it.
Yeah,
was it their
Not the
summer
right
or their
place.
Yes,
winter?
it was
Later.
going from spring into summer, and so it was perfect time.
It was gorgeous.
It
Which is
was
exactly flip opposite of us here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was
So
beautiful.
it'll depend. I'm supposed to do this Chris Farley movie at the end of the year for New
Yeah.
Line Cinema, and that's
Are you going to be Chris Farley?
and produce the movie.
Stop.
But
Yeah.
if that happens, I want my kids to have like
Yeah.
balance and structure.
Yeah.
That's important to me because I literally had a renowned doctor basically sit me down and be like, hey, your job is not helping your kids' development. And I was like,
yeah.
I want to beat you up.
Yeah.
And then like after my manness wore off, I was like, maybe he's right. And I just need to forego some time with them if I'm shooting somewhere.
Yeah.
But I still think like, maybe we can do, they're young enough that we could probably do a homeschool type thing.
Honestly,
and do
totally.
some hotel suites or do an Airbnb.
What aspect of it is not helping them? What does he mean by that?
I think he means just like our son, especially our son with autism, Harris. It's like,
He needed consistency in his
they
schooling.
thrive in consistency.
Yeah.
They
And,
don't. We've literally taken him out of school early some days after a week or two of like the straight schedule, and it's like he'll have a tantrum
Meltdown.
out of
Yeah.
nowhere. That's like, oh
Okay, that makes sense. But I
Yeah.
will say, like from our experience, and this is, I'm not a doctor,
no.
Yeah.
but our experience, the routine can be what you make it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I heard it said that there's a grace on your kids for whatever calling's on your life.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it's really important to remember that because you
Love
guys have a
that.
unique calling, and the
Yeah.
grace that's on your life is also on your kids' life for your
Yeah.
calling too, because they're called to what you're called to in that sense. And so like we found like if we compare what our kids' normative experience is to someone else who's not called to what we're called to,
Yeah.
we're always going to feel like a fear-based response. But it gives you
Yeah.
such a sense to like, hey, God's graced them for this too. And so like there may
Wow.
be wisdom in
Love that.
figuring out a routine
So beautiful.
that becomes bomb-proof to whatever schedules you have.
Yeah.
But man, they're going to adapt to what life is like for them. You know,
And I
so.
think that's what Harris did in Australia, and he was thriving there. And, we just went with Paul, and like we kind of have a rule where after 2 weeks, like we need to be able to see each other. We've been through too much.
Yeah,
We're
that's
like,
good for the marriage.
That
Yeah.
is very good.
That's
Yes.
what the Bible says when it says like, don't deprive one another, for that Satan will not fill that spot. You know what I mean? with
I thought
temptation.
that was just about sex. Do you mean as a couple?
No,
too?
I think in every
all
way,
the
because
ways.
think about it,
Yeah.
like your emotional, like what strength you're getting from your spouse emotionally,
Oh, yeah.
will naturally start to look.
There's a deficit.
Yes.
You'll
Yeah.
start to kind of take on a single life again.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the worst. Where
Yeah.
like you actually, I've had it to where enough time will go by and it's like there's a depreciation of my mood. I'm not as sharp as I usually am. Like,
When
and
you were
it's
in London filming, because he was in
Oh,
London
God,
for like
yeah.
6 weeks
Wow.
for Marvel.
Yeah.
And
it was a lot.
yeah.
And you came out to break up the time for
Yeah.
me, which was nice.
Yeah,
Like midway
it's-
through,
yeah.
I had her out for 5 days and we had a blast.
Yeah.
But
And it really is important.
Stuff.
And I think 2 weeks is a good, and obviously like there's going to be people listening who are going to get deployed, overseas, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not
goodness, what a
possible.
nightmare.
Yeah.
So, we're not like, that's not a hard and fast rule, but I think
Yeah.
it's
There's
having the
elasticity
priority, and obviously with FaceTime and with visits, like
Yeah.
there are ways around it. But I think
Mhm.
if you have the option,
Yeah.
that seems to be similar to us, like
Yeah.
a space that you don't want to go beyond. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think you feel it out and you figure that stuff
Yeah.
out too. And but one of the, another thing I got from your book, it was, cause I just read / listened to I Declare War. It was like, you say something in there about the idea of like footholds
Yeah.
and the idea of like,
Yeah.
this Christian band, I don't know if it's Casting Crowns or whoever, they had a song called Slow Fade.
Yeah.
And it's just like this idea of like, it starts small. Don't be
Yeah.
deceived. Don't be in this place of like prideful, belief that you cannot be tampered with in your spirit or your mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of that can start small where it's like you are away from your spouse for too long
Yeah.
and you're not even thinking clearly.
Right,
And
right.
you're-
It's true.
and little things, just
Yeah.
little things that, if you told a friend, they'd be like, I think you're being too hard on yourself. But it's like, it's still about maintaining a level of security around the things that are most precious to you, be it
Yeah.
your sobriety, your children, what have you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the what is it? I think the way I say it is, at risk of being the rhymey preacher again, the foothold leads to a chokehold, which leads to a stronghold, right?
Ooh,
so like he's always
good.
So
looking.
good.
He never comes to just do what he's doing.
Yep.
He always wants. He's like this
More.
10 steps ahead. He's playing chess, not
Yeah.
checkers.
Yeah, that's so
Absolutely.
true. It's
Yeah,
so good.
Absolutely.
And it's like, oh, this is technically a gray area. It's like, yeah, it
Mhm.
might be, but what he's really wanted to get you to is not. You know,
Yeah.
You know what's hard? It's hard to talk to non-faith related people or Christians about that.
Yeah.
Because if you told them in some way I don't know, they would take it all upon themselves as we
Yeah.
devise you're the architect of your own prison, you devise your own trouble.
Yeah.
But it's like, we believe that there is this principality,
Yeah.
this unseen thing
Yeah.
that is tampering with your destiny and all these things that God has pre-authored for your life in to his glory and his own story. So it's like, when you start to feel that, it is so frustrating because it's like, man, you have to find someone in community you can talk to about
Yeah.
that so that you don't feel crazy because
Yeah.
the rest of the world would probably
yeah.
write it off and be like,
100%.
Absolutely.
And something
Yeah.
we've seen is just like we have a group of like prayer warriors, mentors, that counselors that are like come around us. It's like, hey, we're walking through this. We need you guys to be praying for us, because our life does look different than most people's.
Right.
And y'all, I'm sure y'all see that too.
Yeah.
And knowing that we have a community of people that we can go to be praying for us, walking through that with us. Because it's like, man,
Yeah.
you're not coming after us. Like after
Yeah.
what we've been through, I'm like,
Oh.
heck no.
Yes.
Like I'm not scared to storm the gates of heaven. And
just us. Yeah, it was fun.
Come on.
yeah.
We've had jokes about spiritual warfare because it's like you can't be like everything is a constant tornado and a hurricane and a fire.
Yeah.
And it's like, we do have to take accountability and responsibility,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like when I am not in my word or in the word of God, and when I'm not being accountable and when I'm doing things for selfish gain, I don't get messed with. Literally the days leading to us coming here were like 180.
100%.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Laughably kind of tumultuous around us, not even in our spirits, but like
Just with our kids,
our life.
like with Harris, 2 days before we came, found out that our child has an autoimmune disease and Lyme disease, and we're like, what? How
you
did
guys,
how do we
I'm so
miss this?
sorry.
And,
yeah.
no, but it was just, I was
And
like,
then
we have to be
we found out a
spiritually
financial
aware.
thing too that was just like
Surprise!
it was like God just I literally felt like God was looking at me going, You gonna be old, Paul, or are you gonna man up and acknowledge me?
Wow.
Like I literally felt like a dad figure was looking at
in
me
a loving
going,
way. Yeah.
No, but in a way that like a man's trying to iron sharpening iron, helping another man.
Wow.
It felt like God was like, are you going to flip out and get mad, or are you gonna be a stoner in the spirit and remember me? Like, and I kind of just, it fluctuated a little bit, but like I made the effort. I was not wallowing and not like dipping into my.
There. You got where.
Yeah, totally.
And that's a huge marker of growth to see that in yourself.
Oh my gosh.
You can be proud of that, you know?
Yeah.
Like anything though, consistency, it's hard, you know?
Yeah, well, it becomes familiar. It's like, oh yeah, this is the battleground. It's time to fight now.
Yeah.
This is what I do to like arm up.
Yeah.
And this is my worship playlist. I'm like, I told him the other day, I was like, you need to go listen to some worship.
Worship
Be
playlists
quiet.
are a big
Just be
deal.
quiet
Dude,
and
it changes
listen,
the atmosphere around you in a very
Absolutely.
serious way,
It
right?
really
I'll blare it
does.
in our
Yeah.
house when the kids start acting crazy. I'm like, everybody's about to get some Jesus.
Yeah.
I left it on at night.
Yes.
I literally
Everybody's
left it on at
about to
night
see
and been
Jesus.
like, this is just going to play in our basement.
Yeah.
It's going to get in my brain as I sleep. Yeah, totally.
Incredible.
Mhm.
Okay, so I do have to ask, I know there's some stuff that's been announced publicly, like, and you just mentioned Marvel. You're publicly attached to the new Fantastic Four.
Yes.
But beyond that, like, I know the Marvel universe is like so lock and key and cloak and dagger.
I think it goes the White House, then Marvel.
And Taylor Swift. Yeah, exactly. So, and then Illuminati right below that. Yeah.
Wow.
So like what can be said, what can't, I know there's a lot that can't be said.
I mean, the only things I can share from that experience are what was really fun was, and it meant a lot to me, I took a meeting with the director, this guy, Matt Shackman, who had previously had rave reviews for directing WandaVision, Fargo, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I did a controversial episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia back in 2010. It's one of my first acting jobs. And I was stoked to get it because I loved the show. But that guy who directed the episode, Matt Shackman, like has blown up since. And he remembered me from that episode 15 years ago this summer.
Wow.
We shot it and it tracked my career with the I, Tanyas and the Richard Jewells and stuff and Blackbird. And he went and did a lunch with me in Santa Monica, and I didn't know what it was about. I knew he was doing the Fantastic Four movie, and I was like, maybe I'll have the role as the big orange guy, the Thing or whatever. It's clobbering time. And then he like didn't talk about the Fantastic Four the whole time. And I was just like, oh, this is just like a general. We're
just hanging out. Yeah.
And that's okay. Like that is okay.
Yeah.
Once again, something I've learned about emotional responsibility through therapy is like, you can't always hold people to your standard of how you want them to react or act.
Come
or whatever.
on. That's so
And, you know,
good.
something with my wife I did this morning. It was literally, what was it? There was something I like wanted you to do that you couldn't do. And it was something minute. But in my head, I was like, she doesn't want to do it or whatever. Like, let it go.
know.
Yeah.
It literally might have been a drink order. It was minute, but it's like, I always have to remind myself of that. But he,
so
months later made me the offer for a part in this film. And it was such a blessing because I've never gotten that call from Marvel or DC. I've never.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That is.
Been
We were at
blessed.
dinner
You guys
and I
big
was
Marvel
like,
fans and people
We're on
like
a date
don't-
night. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. No,
I'm not.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm probably an above average fan. I'm
Sure.
not psychotic, but like I
Yeah, we're
love
probably
it.
in that.
Yeah, like we
range.
recently just rewatched the whole timeline in order.
Okay.
That's
You
what
know,
I'm doing
like-
right now.
Yeah.
I've never
Oh.
seen all of them.
Okay.
I need
Some
to
I
do
haven't
that.
seen.
Yeah, but we watched Lord of the Rings every year, extended edition. Like we like that kind of like living in the
Appendices.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Watching little Peter Jackson talk. Going,
Come on, bro.
there's an actor named Viggo Mortensen who I decided to cast as Faramir. No, not Faramir.
Yeah,
Who is he?
by the way, how do you do that? You pull out a British accent. I realize you're a professional. But
That
like,
might not have been good.
in
I don't know. That was New
Your
Zealand. I
whole
think.
Horace accent was all British.
Yeah, no. I had like I was like 60% there, 70% when I did the audition for Disney. And then I worked with this guy Neil Swan, who I'm so glad I remember his name. He was a really terrific
Is that a
guy.
vocal coach? Is that what they call that?
Vocal coach,
Or
yeah.
dialect coach or whatever.
okay.
We would meet at the Soho Hotel and we'd have tea in the afternoon. We'd sit down for 30, 40 minutes and run through the dialogue. It was great.
And eat crumpets.
Oh.
He would not eat crumpets. I ate
I
the
liked it
hell
when
out
you
of
were
some
at the. I liked it when at the end of that scene you were like, "You're out of crumpets."
You're at crumpets. Yeah. I love that voice so much.
Yes.
Is that a
So
Cockney
good.
British accent? Like, what is that accent?
Well, so the whole inception of that voice for me, because they don't tell you what to do. You as an actor, like if you're lucky, it's you get to interpret. I was a big fan of the movie Hook when I was a kid.
Yes.
And this actor, this shorter character actor who I loved, Bob Hoskins, who's since passed.
Is he Smee?
He was Smee,
Yeah.
And did Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
that's
Brilliant,
cool.
brilliant
Yeah.
actor, like an actor's actor, properly did, all his theater stuff in London back in the day. And he, I always remembered this bit, and it was funny because Hook was on TV yesterday randomly. We watched like the
That's
ending.
a formative movie for us. I feel like
Yes.
childhood
So
babies.
good.
Yeah,
For
you
me.
can't not.
So good.
Passion this year. Did you see any of it?
No.
Not yet.
Cody Carnes was leading worship, and he was wearing these high water pants, and had derbies on, and a beanie on,
That's so
and a
funny.
vest on.
He
and I
looked
was
like a
like,
lost
bro,
boy?
you look like Smee.
We gotta
I turned to Crowder and I was like, Smee. Like, it was like we were having a moment
That's
with
so
it. Yeah,
funny.
so I told Cody, I was like, bro, you channeled Smee.
I was hoping he dyed his hair and looked like Rufio, but that's so awesome.
So then I was telling Crowder, I was like, imagine if you were wearing those pants. They would be Speedos on you. You know what I mean? Like, his legs are so long.
It'll
Yeah.
be shorts on
This is what I think about when I should be worshiping.
No, that's a very human
Entering
thing.
the
Like,
throne
let's
room
talk
with
about
Smee.
it.
Could be praising
It is
God.
human.
I'm talking about Cody's pants on Crowder,
It's human to have a mental detour during a service.
It's
Like it happens all the
It's
time.
true.
Yeah.
But I remember Bob Hoskins saying, he's Peter Pan, all right. He's been gone from Neverland so long, he's forgotten everything. Like,
Yeah, wow.
I remember that and I was
Yes.
like,
So good.
I'm going to harness that and just do that.
Yes.
So I'm basically just doing Hoskins the whole
And you
movie.
did it. You
Yeah.
did it.
But
It
it
was
was-
awesome.
You did. Well, the accent was fantastic.
Thanks. There were some editors, there were some people that worked on the movie that they didn't know my prior work and they were watching it. And then when they yelled cut and they still have the camera rolling or whatever, they heard me slip back in my regular voice and they were like, oh, I didn't know. And I was like, oh.
Okay, see,
That's
one
the
of my
coolest.
kids, I don't
That's
remember
like-
which one, when I told them you guys were coming out to hang, they were like, he's British, right? Like, they literally thought.
Oh, that's funny.
So,
Wow.
massive flex.
Uh-huh.
It
That's
always
cool.
fascinates me when Idris Elba or whoever can go just
Oh, yeah.
act in American
Yeah.
English, and then you
Idris is
doing
really
the
good
exact
at it.
opposite. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, that's the fun too, is like sometimes just saying yes to something without fully knowing if you can do it. Like that's part of
the challenge of it.
well, and it keeps you motivated. Fear is such a beautiful motivator.
Yeah.
And when you take on a role like Chris Farley, it's like, that is and what's funny is I have a weird piece about it because I believe I'm supposed to play it.
Yeah.
So like the imposter syndrome isn't there, but the fear motivating me, like you better believe that if I'm starting shooting October 1, by about June 15th, June 18th, I'm going to have a moment where I wake up in a cold sweat and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do?
Yes.
Yeah, and you freak out and then you
Does that come with every role?
No, there are some that almost to my detriment I've kind of walked through because I just believe I know what it is. But sometimes that's bad too, and you're like, maybe I should be over preparing this thing, but I've also over intellectualized things that I don't need to. Like that's what's scary is like, and as a pastor, I know whether you can talk about this or not is up to you, but
Yeah,
Because
I'm an open book, man.
no, I'm just saying like when you do it for long enough, I've been acting for 15 years professionally. So it's like, okay, at some point, do you need to fill your mental itinerary with a million things? Or do you recognize that you've crossed a certain line where you are comfortable enough to just do it? And I think it's a gray area where sometimes you can just do it and make it look easy because you're used to doing it. Well, and then sometimes you're like, I really have to nail this Christmas sermon. And this is like, or this is a controversial topic because like for a pastor, it's like a mass shooting happens. It's like, how am I going to talk about this really difficult thing?
Yeah,
You
no,
know, and
so
that's-
good.
that's an actor
It's
idea.
funny. It's
Yeah.
different every time. Like there's always a trepidation and a fear because
Yeah.
you're speaking for God,
Yeah.
and you always want clean
Even
hands and
more-
a pure
even
heart.
higher
you know?
stakes.
Yeah.
with
But
that.
it's
Yeah.
funny, like sometimes the message falls together. Spurgeon, you mentioned him. He had this line where he said, sometimes I hit my text with a golden hammer. It falls perfectly into my outline, my title, my illustrations. And
Yeah.
I'm like, should it all be like this, you
Yeah.
know? And then other
Yeah.
times you're agonizing till the last minute, just trying to find it and it doesn't come to you, so
Yep.
so it is funny. I think that's just part of vocation.
Yeah.
There's always
Yes.
going to be some
Totally.
sense of that we're all, and we all look at each
Part
other
of
do what we're doing,
parenting,
going
too.
like, what you do, I could never do. And then
Yeah.
you can see each other operating in our grace. And
Yeah.
there's such a sense of,
Yeah.
but I still think there's going to be, and I liked hearing that you're saying like, there's going to be a sense of like, cause I've had my fair share of the cold sweats, and all the things. So that's just kind of human.
Healthy fear. I think parenting's like that too, where I've said to Amy, like we'll have some day where both our boys are, for whatever reason, emotionally very stable, and they're listening to us, and we're like, tight, this is like the sickest day ever. And then like I come back from a work trip like 5 days later, and it's like my son Jonah will just be like, like screaming, like
on the back of the
he's having
couch
a night terror, and you're like,
oh my
it's been
gosh.
20 minutes. What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And like, I thought we figured this out, and it's like, no, you never really figured it out.
No.
Now you've already
Gone.
done a known person, a real person. Richard Jewell was a real human.
A bunch, yeah.
you've done
Itanya
more
was
than
a
that.
real human.
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah, duh, of course.
Yeah.
Itanya, Silk Road, Richard Jewell.
And the serial killer, right? Or is that real?
Yeah, that was real.
Was that-
Farley now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with,
and I just did Deliver Me From Nowhere, which is the new Bruce Springsteen movie. Jeremy Allen White from The Bear and Shameless is playing Bruce. I played a real guy named
Okay.
Mike Batlin, who was part of his crew of guys.
Yeah.
so that's been, is the process drastically different than when you're doing a made up character?
No, that's I fight to do the real thing as much as possible when it warrants it. The real Mike Batlin, I got on the phone with him for like an hour to talk, and like he wasn't giving me much. No offense to him, but I was kind of like looking for more. You know, but what was helpful is the whole time he kept saying, he's like, we were just a bunch of kids. We didn't know anything. We were just hanging out with Bruce, and we thought he was brilliant. So we worked unpaid for X amount of years, and we traveled the road, and you're sharing a hotel with 3 other guys. Where you're like, I almost took his attitudinal stance on the phone call and said, well, remember that's who you're playing in this youth. You're a guy in his early to mid 20s who's just kind of having fun with his buddy, has no idea that his buddy is going to be on the Mount
boss.
Rushmore of
The
puppies.
boss, yeah.
The boss.
Right. So like that ends up
Wow.
helping. But I would say for Blackbird, I over prepared everything. I was like, you're going to do this with your fingernail and bite your fingernail this way. You're going to sit this way. You're going to change your voice in this moment. You're going to think this horrible thought to elicit it in your eyes when you say that line. Like, it was a lot of work. It was exhausting.
I heard
Wow.
you,
Not
you
fun.
talk about before Richard Jewell's mom and like her being like, no, there's things like you nailed it. Like that
Oh, when
stamp
I'm-
of approval that
Yeah, no,
she felt like
her and Watson Bryant, who was a real life attorney, Richard Jewell, they said they felt like they had Richard back for 2 hours, and I was like,
That's sweet.
Oh,
well, I don't need an Academy Award. That's about as cool
Absolutely.
as a compliment
Yeah.
you could ever
Oh,
receive. You know?
man.
And that's where it is. You do see God working in Hollywood doing these things. Like so many people like to draw this black and white chalk line as if to say like they have an intellectual authority on the way God works in every place. And it's like, think about people that had true stories told that changed the lives of the families for generations to come, and think about the healing that's in telling some of those stories, and, or the justice, the idea of justice after the fact, after it's gone. Like that's an important calling in storytelling too, that I've gotten to partake in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that.
Wow, it's
Okay,
beautiful.
So is there anything more we can know about Marvel, or is that all?
Oh, I didn't get to tell all the things, but essentially I was wowed by production design. I stepped on the set and saw some of these things, and I was like,
It was
this
unreal.
is
Oh my
like,
gosh.
I've been on sets before. This is Marvel. So like for me, there was the youthful Disney kid walking into Disneyland thing, Disney World thing
Sure.
of being like, wow. And then everybody, and I was only there like a week or two. Like it wasn't that a ton of work. But while I was there, like everyone was the best at their jobs.
Yeah.
Like fighting to get the best coffee, fighting to get the best shot, over communicating things. Like there were people swooping in and out, just nailing every piece of their work that I was like, man, I almost want to work on more Marvel movies just to be in an Guardians where everyone is like
At the top of
at
their
the
game.
top of the.
Have you
Totally.
guys talked to
She
the
saw it, too.
Crowders about their experience when their house was used for that Guardians of the Galaxy
No.
thing?
No.
Their house in Atlanta was used for the like a online short for Guardians Christmas special.
Yes.
And some of their stories that they've shared publicly about the level of excellence and the level of, like they blew their door up, like, and there's like just but incredible.
That's so fun.
That is wild.
We had a
incredible.
blast on it. I can't talk about my character or anything, but it was definitely a really cool experience. And the 4 actors who are playing the Fantastic Four, Pedro, Vanessa, Joe, and Eben, they're like classy real actors.
Yeah.
Like they didn't just grab somebody because they're like,
Oh,
he's having a good
Pascal's
moment
cool
right
as
now.
heck,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Him and
Yeah.
Gladiator, the new Gladiator, wild.
Yeah, they're all really incredible. I think the movie's going to end up being, I keep telling people this, which it's like, are you jinxing yourself? But I don't believe in jinxes. I really do think it's going to be a pivotal Marvel movie that will change the landscape and push them further into better storytelling the way that Guardians or Black Panther did.
That's
I really think
great.
it's gonna be
That's
cool.
great.
So I'm stoked to just
they're
be
in a tough
Annie.
spot.
Yeah.
Post Endgame,
Yeah.
it was a rough, moment of like, where do we go from here?
It's
you know?
tough. And
Yeah.
sometimes you take a big swing or you hire the wrong person. It's not a perfect science.
My
I
mind
mean,
blew up though when they said Tony Stark's coming back, but not as Iron Man or
That's not really-
Robert Downey Jr.
I actually think it was the right move. I thought it
Yeah,
was a
of
cool
course,
move.
but it's just wild. We
Yeah.
watched Endgame the other day. I still get so emotional when he dies, man. It's so
Aw.
intense.
Spoiler alert.
No, if you haven't seen Endgame by now, it's like it's what has it been?
I think it's the highest grossing film of all time.
Yeah,
Is it not?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. Okay. Now,
Oh, just to put a cap on the Marvel thing, I just want to set a cap.
Hey.
he was coming back.
there
as
should
the
be-
Falcon, right? He's coming back.
There should be a trailer for Fantastic Four. I'm hoping either before the new Captain America movie or the Thunderbolts movie with my buddy Sebastian.
Okay.
Or maybe I told them, I was like,
Who
how do you
is-
guys not do a Super
He's
Bowl ad?
Bucky. He's the Winter
Bucky.
Soldier. Yeah.
So hopefully in the next, by the time this drops, there's a chance that there's been a trailer.
I
for
really
it,
hope so.
we'll
Well, I
see.
can't wait.
Yes.
I
Can't
have
wait.
such high hopes.
Stoked.
This is the third Fantastic Four, too, right? Isn't this the third one that's been made?
There was a really lo-fi one in the early 90s that was lesser seen. It was like a kind of cult classic
Yeah.
thing. And then there were two
Okay, yeah.
with Jessica
And
Alba.
Captain
Oh.
America was in one of them.
Was
Oh, is he in
Yeah.
both of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Johnny
they
Storm.
never found its.
Oh, and then Miles Teller did one.
Okay, so there's
that
been
did
a lot
not
of
do
them.
well. So there's been 4. Fantastic.
Wow.
We're number 5.
Okay,
Hey,
yeah.
I believe it's number
Maybe
5. This is the
Well,
one.
Marvel has found its way a lot since then.
Yeah.
There certainly has
Yeah.
been some.
Very true.
Yeah.
And that was like a Fox Marvel thing. The two
Mhm.
companies were kind of
yeah.
working in different
It
realms.
was so
Mm.
funny with that IP. You ever go to Universal Studios Florida
No.
and they still have some
No.
IP from some of the Marvel stuff,
Oh,
but
wow.
it's not current.
That's
So
Okay.
like
funny.
you'll see Captain America walking around, but he's wearing the old costume with big flared out boots and like
Yeah.
he's it's like the
It
Spider-Man.
looks like a Temu
he's
Captain
the
America.
janky 1997, 1,000,000%. Yes. This one came in on the slow boat for sure.
Slow boat.
And it is like you're just laughing because like they're
Yeah.
hanging on to it because they
Uh-huh.
technically have Spider-Man and Captain America, but it's like that's not the real one. That's
Yeah.
very fake. But it's I don't know how many years they have still in their contract, but then you go
Funny.
to see the Disney.
Wow.
It's
Riding it
very
out.
funny.
Yeah.
Flarby is a stegosaurus from your mental envisioning. It's like that kind of thing where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
walk
yeah.
in, they've just
Yes.
tried to redo it so they don't get
yes,
sued.
e-
Yeah.
Exactly. Like they have it, but not the real
It's not
one.
there.
They don't get it.
I can
Oh.
taste the low sodium. This is not my chip.
Ooh, yep,
Okay, so I do
yep.
want to say you guys did a 4-part, it released in 4 parts. I am second video shoot telling your whole story.
Mm.
Yeah.
And man, everyone, we'll put the links to them in our show
Yes,
notes
yes,
because
yes.
it is magnificent
It's beautiful.
vulnerability. I
Yeah.
texted you the way that you guys are so open. I mean, just to give a 30-second overview,
Mhm.
you guys have been married twice.
Yep.
You guys' faith journey
Very
and
believed.
your substance abuse journey and figuring out sobriety, figuring out walking with Jesus.
Mm.
I mean, just it's all out there
Mhm.
in a timeline that I didn't want to just make you regurgitate because I would point people to sit and watch that because you guys both go through it. It's
Yeah.
magnificent.
Yeah.
There's almost too much to
Thank you.
share anyway, but for those just tuning in, like the idea is that she and I met a year before we got married, went on one date, and then when COVID happened and everybody was locked up, we reconnected and we're both looking for community at that time. And we fell in love very quickly, got married after 4 or 5 months of dating, and we got married during COVID, and that was a very uncertain time. And I
Yes.
didn't really tell my friends and family much about Amy. It was just like my thing where I'm like, I'm 1,000,000% confident about it. And then through some disapproval of certain family members and through my own idiocy of just being addicted to marijuana edibles and alcohol at the time, I just had some awful decision making, left Amy when she was 2 months pregnant and separated. And even though I was, at the time, it's like my mind was so warped that I was sending money and feeling like I was like still showing up. And it's like she would have preferred me to be out of a job and just been there to grab her a glass of water at night when she couldn't go out of bed. So it's pretty dark what happened. And I missed the birth. I went and shot Blackbird in New Orleans. New Orleans is historically a very spiritually thick place. And so, a worse environment for my already bad mental state and emotional state. But that summer, a couple of friends encouraged me to get sober. This guy, Anthony Pettix, who was my assistant at the time, and my buddy Shia LaBeouf, they kind of told me, hey, check out these rooms. And that summer,
Did you go to a rehab or how did?
No, not a proper rehab. I've never gone to a proper rehab. It's all been in-person meetings and Zoom meetings over Zoom because I'm always traveling. But that summer I gave up alcohol and pornography at the same time. And then that fall I'd still been using marijuana, and I broke down crying in a Zoom meeting with all these guys I'd come to know and trust. And I said, I haven't been faithful. I said I have 90 days tomorrow. I've actually still been getting high. And I said, I'm going to start my day count over. And they all were like, F yeah. And like, like a big group of pirates at a men's meeting at church, bunch of foul mouthed guys supporting me,
Yes.
And I restarted it. And through like taking Zoloft, forcing myself to actually go to therapy, then doing couples counseling with Amy and being sober, it's like, the amount of mental clarity that kicks in over 3 months is enough to span most of my lifetime in congruence. So I asked for forgiveness and had to walk through all that we had done and that I made her walk through. And that journey led us to get remarried in May 14 of 2022.
Incredible.
So
incredible, you guys.
Yeah.
And we now have a third child on the way
You guys,
because of it. Praise
thank
God.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
I hope that was a decent summation, right?
That
That
was-
was
yes.
very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean,
Thank you.
like I said, click the link and watch those
Yeah.
in
Yes,
rapid
it's
fire succession
powerful.
because of the way you laid out everything. But you even actually shared some details there you hadn't shared, I think, in there. But that whole just the power of like, I know you got served divorce papers like the day you saw the ultrasound for the first time.
Yeah, and what was super redemptive this week is on Monday we went back to the doctor's office and he was there filming me and I was like, how beautiful is it? Like I just looked at him and I was like, redemption. This is redemption.
Yes.
That like we get to walk in this, like God is giving life to us. And the enemy thought that he had us that day. And I remember like the first video that I have when I was pregnant with Harris, I'm like crying because I had just gotten served divorce papers and I'm hearing his heartbeat for the first time. And so for that on Monday was another beautiful, like we have
There's
these
been
just,
so many big wins like that for us.
and I'm
yeah.
like, man, the devil can kiss it. Like we
Yeah. That's
have
it. That's
walked
it. That's it.
through
He can do
too
that.
much. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll
can
fight.
sit on attack.
Take
That's a
that,
safe thing
devil.
to say, right?
But
Yeah.
that you're like, and I think what came through to me was like, you never stopped believing. You kept trusting the Lord for
Yeah.
a reconciliation story and
Yeah.
a redemption story. Didn't become bitter. How easy that would have been to be.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think and both of you, like, there's no sense of like you're walking in shame or groveling. Like obviously you look
No.
back and obviously you'd redo it differently, and
Yeah.
but like you guys are both holding your head high and walking with your Father's like pleasure on you and each other's
Yes.
pleasure and love. And there's no
Yeah.
sense of like shame. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
Jesus to Peter, like feed my sheep now.
Yeah.
Come on now. Let's be the dad you're called to be now.
Yeah.
There's a time for that. I think it's very human to feel some shame, and I've dealt with like self-hatred and suicidal ideation in the past, but that was also when I was using.
Yeah.
Like having being sober-minded, as the
Yeah.
Bible talks about a ton, really helps.
Yeah.
It helps you get through some of those things. And she also didn't make me. She never like punished me for the sake of like an emotional, erratic, punishment moment. Like it was always like her saying, I'm triggered by this. I
Yeah.
feel messed up by this.
Having this
But-
conversation, that communication was big. And he was so,
Her explaining the why behind her emotions. Like, this is
Yeah.
why I'm feeling this way. And then me having to sit in it and go, okay, I need to put myself in her shoes and not be offended by her offense. And then like having to understand why it feels that way. And like
Yeah.
her saying like, I'm not doing this to make you feel bad. Just know like this is the
where this
flare
is
up I'm
coming
having.
from.
This is where I'm
that's
coming
really good that
from.
you're not
It's so
holding it over
healthy.
him.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so
Yeah.
healthy.
Well, and just knowing like that's not the soundtrack of what Jesus does. And,
So good.
one of the songs, I mentioned this in a documentary from Christian Stanfield. I remember being in church, that song, they were about to release it before Passion. And they trial the songs at church. And it's like, as long as he's in it, the story's not finished. And I remember in my spirit just feeling it so deep, like he's not done and I'm not going to quit believing. Like if I told God, I was like, if you want me to stop, I'll stop. But I'm going wildly crazy after this. I'm storming the gates of heaven. I'm not going to stop because I knew that there was something spiritually just over him. And I was like, no. I remember beating the steering wheel in the post office parking lot when I had just gotten the call that Harris was a boy. And I told the enemy, I was like, you don't get to have my family. You haven't met this fighter. And I'm going all in. And I know who my God is. I know what he promises. And I'm not going to stop. And so I was like, when we got back together, like it was a journey. We had therapy. We had counselors and
A lot of work.
yeah, and finding out stuff that he had done while we were separated. And I'm like, I'm holding a newborn baby. And, like I felt like so much was taken. But since then, God has done so much. And we have so many redemptive moments. Like we were at the Golden Globes and I'm pregnant with our second baby. And it's there to celebrate him when he wins the Golden Globe for Blackbird, which he was shooting during my first pregnancy.
Oh my gosh.
And so we go to walk on the red carpet and I was like, this is in the enemy's face.
Yes.
And like,
Testament too to her, like her support of me. I said, I was like, if you don't want to go to the premiere, you don't want to watch the show or whatever. Like,
Because it's a representative of a very dark time.
yeah, like
Yes,
when I
and
gave
like-
birth,
Yeah.
I was on the phone with him in character for Larry Hall.
like
He was
I
in the hair
had
and makeup
and
trailer.
stuff.
Yeah. And that's when you were in New Orleans and you talked about having that moment. I think you had left a strip club and you felt suicidal, like one of those
Yeah,
times when
no,
the
I
enemy was
just-
trying to snuff your life out.
Yeah, it was, and once again, like the real me. One of the only things I've ever heard the Holy Spirit tell me in the still small voice, for sure, that I can say like this happened, is there are people who don't like you because they've never even met the real you.
Mhm.
And in the moment where I'm living this fabricated life before I got sober, I just, there was like a lot of, because you want to be out of pain, you don't realize how much pain you're in. You fantasize about dying because you want it to be, you want to be out of the pain. You want to stop, you want your brain to shut off. You're like these voices in my head that I'm saying are my voice or not my voice, but I'm that thing of assigning the voice of demons. It's like the screw tape letters. It's like, imagine believing that you're the author of all those thoughts when really you're not. You're being attacked too. And you're attacked because you left the door open via drugs and alcohol and not connecting to the Lord. So it's like in those moments of like leaving a strip club and being drunk and high and wanting to die, that to me was like, whatever you're going through right now, this is, it's objectively bad and you don't like it.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do in response to that reality?
Yeah.
Because I could still at the time pawn off all my bad feelings about Amy on, well, I didn't know who I married and she tricked me and like all these BS things you were thinking at that time. So I knew it was bad. And what was funny is I told my assistant, Anthony, and he didn't tell me this till he sat down with me and Amy and we finally had like a hard talk in Tarzana back when we lived there. But I had told him on a Thursday, because I was literally having trouble saying dialogue in this really hard scene in Blackbird. I was like forgetting dialogue. And I wasn't showing up to set high and drunk. It was just the fact that I'm all screwed up in the head.
Yeah.
So I told him I'd spent all this money on this bar cart and filled it up. Like it was so sad how proud I was of my bar cart. And like I told him on a Thursday, I said, Saturday, I need you to throw away this bar cart. Which like, for those who don't understand alcoholism, if you're not an Al-Anon, if you're not an alcoholic, whatever, that's the most alcoholic thing you could possibly say because you're unconsciously or consciously saying, I need one more night to like get
one last hurrah.
Lord, help me tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be there
Give
tomorrow.
me just one night, una noche.
Yes.
So what I didn't know is he had thrown the bar cart out that morning when I went to set because he thought it was getting so bad and he was worried and he had dealt with addiction.
Quasi-intervention a little bit, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was gnarly, but it was just very much meant to be.
Well,
Yeah.
what I keep thinking about for you, Amy, is you, like Rahab, kept that scarlet cord up in the window of your home.
Yeah.
For at a time when he didn't have faith, but you did.
Yeah.
And you held that cord up for your husband. You held it up for your kids. You held it, and now you guys are walking in such a sense of the verse that I just feel for you guys is like the Lord tells the prophet Joel, "I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten."
Yeah.
And it's almost like you should have been then, but you didn't. But I'm so good now as you seek me. I'm going to restore to you so much of what was taken that it's almost going to be as though you had been walking with me all those years. And someone said,
Amen.
God can do 30-fold, 60-fold, and 100-fold, right? But if you do 2 years at 100-fold, it can make up for 4 years of 30-fold. You know what I mean? So it's like you guys are so throwing yourself into your marriage, your walk with Jesus, your family, everything now. It's almost like the time you lost is going to be sort of regained because no one can make back time, but God can.
Yeah.
Because he's outside of time.
Come
I just see that in you. And I only see that in you. I see it as God holding you up as his trophy to showcase a broken world, the redemption that's possible if they'll walk with him, you know?
Amen. So good.
And like,
Thank you. I love that.
That was so beautiful. I think, it was hard. Like there were days where I sat on the kitchen floor with a screaming newborn and I was so tired and I was like, what is he doing? Where is he? Why? And I was like, God, why would you lead me to all this or call me to all this? I knew that we were called to be married. Why would you do this and lead me? So I had those moments. But I was like, you know what? Since I'm here, we're believing. We're going after it and we're believing that you're going to
faith was always very authentic too. Like when you said something, you really meant it. And that was part of what was so attractive about you when I met you is it wasn't, because you talked a lot about being in and out of some like mega churches and stuff. And like in my brain, I'm like, sometimes there's a connotation with that lifestyle of churching that is just a little bit like, is it real or is it performative? And I always thought I'm the real Christian, and really it just means I'm really broken, so I decided to talk like this. You know what I mean? Like the reality is it's really split the difference. We are all in our most authentic when we.
And there are people in big churches who are real and legit, and people who are in small churches who are hypocritical and religious.
1,000%. But it was nice to find out that it was so real for her. But I mean, when we got back together and she told me she had written all these Bible verses on the wall and she had photos of them and she had snapshots of group texts of other women. Like, here's what's going on this week. Pray for this. Pray that Paul would, and like thoughtful stuff, like pray that Paul would do well on his job and pray that nothing would hurt him. And like the level of love and thoughtfulness and belief. And
I still believe, I was like, we're still husband and wife and he's still my husband. Like no matter what a separation paper says, like
oh my gosh,
he's still my husband. So I'm still called to pray for him and to lift him up.
You can't have my family. I'm not going to forget that.
Yeah. I was like, you don't get to.
I also want to say for any guys who are watching or hearing some of this and thinking like that guy is like, I think some men, when they hear them talk flowery about their wives, they believe that there's something almost lacking in the masculinity. I'd just like to say that like one of the fruits of the Spirit is gentleness, and having a what I would say like a coating or veneer of gentleness and love and how you talk about your wife. It is strong. It is not weak.
No,
and you should. And if you don't feel that way about your wife, and most of the things that you're saying are coming out like she's like a parent restricting your behavior,
like a ball and chain.
If that's really how you feel, then something's wrong with your marriage, and you should take care of that. You should ask 100%. The why behind it.
It's a good word.
Because I think I've heard that and seen that, and I've in my past been annoyed by dudes like me. My buddy Nathan, who I used to work at as a mortgage associate at Quicken Loans and One Reverse Mortgage, he used to say, he's like, I used to beat up guys like me. I thought it was so funny. But like, I see that now where I'm like, wow, the broken version of me that didn't know why he was so angry and flustered would hear some of the stuff I'm saying today and be like, that guy's fake or that guy's this. And it's like, no, I'm actually just really happy.
Yes.
And it looks weird because you're used to me not being happy when you knew me 5 years ago. You didn't know how unhappy I was.
Well, our counselor pointed out that if you comb through the Gospels, Jesus exhibits like 29 different emotions.
Wow.
And you think, who's a real man's man more than Jesus?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
But there's
Carpenter.
sadness, there's happiness, there's like the anger.
Yeah.
Like he exhibits the range, you know, and so like it's not masculinity to like withhold the emotional response of like you can feel deeply, you can be kind, you can be gentle, you can also be brave, you can also be fierce. Like it's all there, and that's all in the Imago Dei. We have all that in us, you know. It's like you know, and obviously you played an emotion, but now you're like you're exhibiting all the different emotions that there are, you know. So
Absolutely.
very good. Yeah. That had to be a weird experience. Dude, is that your first cartoon you did, the Inside Out 2?
Oh, embarrassment.
Yeah, because you literally played an emotion.
Yeah. That was kind of hard to do. We recorded like 3 hours worth of stuff, and then it's like one line and some, you know, random things. But I was.
Were they showing you footage of your character while you were doing all the lines?
They showed me the sketches, like the artistry and the pre-visualization. It was just beautiful, breathtaking. I thought it was so cool.
It's amazing.
And the fact that I'm once again like Cruella, Fantastic Four, Inside Out 2. These are massive, beloved pieces of storytelling out of arguably the biggest company in the world from a media standpoint. Now, I'm not the lead of any of those, but what's cool is like I'm getting to play a part in telling really good stories. And, and there's a verse, you know, better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about Hollywood. Like, I don't need to be the lead of anything, but I would like to be, I'll hold the door in something really great. Yeah. And that's been my attitude towards it.
Well, the opportunities that you have been beautiful.
Opportunities have been stupid, and they're not self-propelled. I mean, I guess I set myself up for some opportunities by being prepared and trying to be a nice guy and having a good rep in town. But like, God has just been crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy kind. In you can go play Ninja Boy in Cobra Kai, and then you get to do monologues with Kathy Bates and Richard Jewell.
Working for Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
stupid.
Which, by the way, didn't you go to school with Clint's grandson, Clint Eastwood?
Kids.
Oh, Clint Eastwood's kids.
Scott.
Yeah, they in Monterey, California. They were in the same school.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like the mayor of Monterey at one point.
Carmel.
Carmel, that's the one. Yeah, and now his kids all act. I haven't gotten to meet his kids, but
was it Scott you went to school
Clint
with?
was so nice.
He was little.
And he's like an actor now as well, right?
I think
in the
so.
filmmaking
Looks just like
industry.
his dad too. It's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But I very much just feel spoiled by those opportunities,
Yeah. Oh,
Which is
yeah.
incredible. And I always, I'm not an actor, but I love the line, there's no such thing as a small part. There's just a small actor.
actors.
And just that thought, like that's kingdom. That's kingdom.
Absolutely.
You know, that
Absolutely.
like, am I in a supporting scene? Well, the Bible says God sees and gives credit for the person who does the assist and the person who gets the shot.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like
true.
having that
That's
mentality
cool.
of excellence and everything. I mean, and you guys are living that out.
Yeah.
It's been cool. Like we were at the Golden Globes. We went to more award shows other than the Golden Globes, but I had this moment where, you know, before I married Paul, I was speaking at places. I was writing. I was doing all this ministry, and I was like, I had to put that aside for just a little bit. But, you know, ministry's in your home. So I was okay with that. I was like, okay, God. And then we're at the Golden Globes, and the chairs were really uncomfortable. So I was like, there's a nice chair in the bathroom. I'm going in the bathroom because I was super pregnant. And I was like, chairs matter right now. And so I go in there, and there's an actress in there that you would know her. And she looked in the mirror and she was like, I look hideous. I am so ugly. And I just got up and I was like, no, you are beautiful. You were made for this moment here. You were supposed to be here and you look gorgeous. And in that moment, I felt like God said, now sit back down. This is where I have you right now. This is where your ministry is.
Oh my God.
In the bathroom of the Golden Globes. And so I'm like,
people just kept
so
coming in.
yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'll just
so
sit here.
needed.
Yeah, so it's just like,
beautiful.
Such a good encourager too. That's what
Try
it
to
is.
be.
Yeah. No, you not try. You do.
Well, and I love that God is calling Christians to see that taking their place in the marketplace, in the industry, not creating a sub, you know what I mean? Christian industry, like, but to say I'm salt and light right here in this world. I want to rub shoulders with broken humanity, you know, and to do that in science. I feel like Louis has so long said, like, in the fashion industry, in the medical industry, aerospace, like, take your place, do it to the glory of God, do it with excellence, and be that salt and light.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I was on our movie set, The Tiger Rising, and I had crew members come up to me like, Miss Amy, will you pray for so-and-so? I know you're a woman of God. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, we'll do it right now. You know, like they see it. And it's like, hey, you just be where I'm asking you to be, stand in this moment and be who I need you to be.
Amen.
Well, we have loved just getting to talk to you guys
Oh
today.
my gosh,
Thanks
you
for
guys.
Thank you for having us.
Seriously.
Thank
podcast
you.
fam has loved it.
Yeah.
And now we have a date with a cold plunge
Yes.
and a date with
Yes.
some tacos. So
Yes, I'm
you
excited
guys,
about that.
Yes.
it's amazing. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Is it cool if we end in prayer? Have you ever done
Oh
that?
no,
Yes.
we have, but we would love to.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's I'll pretend to be reverent and take my hat off.
Yeah.
Try my bald
Please.
spot.
Beautiful.
Father God, thanks so much for this time together. We just want to call out the fact that it's so cool that podcasts became such a thing. It's like, you are making all things new.
Mhm.
Radio becomes this new thing where people are learning and people are just having a laugh or people are having a conversation. And us in our lonely states sometimes too, whether driving or on a treadmill, it feels like we have community by listening to a podcast sometimes. It's like we're there hanging out, and it's such a fun medium. So we just pray that you would bless all people who do podcasts, that they would be inspired to say the things you want them to say and do the things you've created them to do. We pray blessing over this one in particular, that the Luskos would only grow in number and passion, both for the product of this podcast and for you, the product maker of all things.
Thank you,
Please
God.
author our good and bad moments, that we wouldn't distrust the book, but that we keep reading, keep writing. And thank you for the gift of our children, which just meeting the Lusko children. It was just another moment of like, man, how lucky are we to have these adorable, awesome kids who are going to end up teaching us more than we think we can teach them.
Thank you, God.
So as your children, we can't teach you, God, but we are looking for you to keep teaching us and showing us what you would have us do. In Jesus' name,
Jesus'
amen.
name.
Amen.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to swing by levilusko.com and jennielusko.com to see what's going on in our world.
And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And in the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media.
Jennie and Levi Lusko, out.
Access more